All right. Well, I just clicked live, Matt. So welcome in. And I was getting an error and I was trying to fix it. It says
I,
a premium account on X is required to create live broadcast on their platform. So tough.
a
I guess people can't
live
watch their Twitter anymore.
broadcast, a live broadcast on Twitter.
Well, it used to work on,
Yeah, so it
like, it
just
used to just be
changed.
live as well.
Huh.
I guess. Yeah, that's why I was trying to, it was trying to figure that out. And I was like, whatever, Matt's not here. I'll just go live and see what happens. Let's look. Yeah, no. I believe
Wow,
it just doesn't work anymore.
that's very funny. Thanks,
I'm
Elon.
clicking it again just to see. No, it says you can't. Yep, just says you can't do it. Um, it's my if my Wi-Fi gets bad, I may lower my resolution just to see if that helps because it gave me like better quality and it looks really good on my end, but now it's saying I have bad Wi-Fi, so I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's probably a contributing factor.
Yeah, I might just do it now. I'm just gonna put it on low definition. Hold on. All right, I'm putting it on low def. Who cares? All right, we're already getting some GMs in the chat. People are here. Yeah, no, it's just not gonna let me go live on X and or Twitter and or whatever you want to call it anymore. That's very cool and fun without paying money. And I know tens of people accidentally click on it, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's see.
I mean
Do
every
we
time it's
have?
gone without a doubt.
Do we have? Oh, yeah.
You
Okay,
want?
I found the link. I just want to share the link in
Yeah.
Discord.
I'm posting it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna give us a good little intro. I just, like I said, I kind of wanted to start before you got here, and then I thought we'd do like an intro, and then you'll know if are you going to do the podcast?
What do you
Are
mean?
you going to make it into a podcast? Like, is
Yeah,
this going
I'll
to be a
throw it
podcast? I don't know if
similar
you're.
to years past. I'll throw it on the audio feed. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't gonna try to deal with it, and also I was like, I don't want to try to like give myself an out. I'm just gonna talk when I have people on that want to talk, and until they don't want to talk anymore, I'm gonna talk, and that turned into 3 hours and 20 minutes because I wasn't gonna stop talking. Okay, I posted it on Twitter as well. I guess we can't do that anymore. Yeah. So do you want me to? Are you gonna want to share your screen, or do you want me to do it? It doesn't really matter to know because I did pull up stuff, but I don't care
I
if you
don't.
just have it all up already, and then we'll
No,
do.
I don't. We shouldn't really. I don't think we should sit here and read what I wrote. Um, I think we should
Okay,
mention
that's
that it
fine.
exists, and then if people have questions, we can talk about it. But I think, based on my experience with your previous drafts, that we should probably get to the draft sooner than later because it might take an hour for a
Yeah,
draft to fill, or it might take 10 minutes. I don't know,
I
or it
mean,
might take
we
1 minute.
definitely
Yeah.
after the first. I feel bad. Yeah, I feel bad for Noah being kind of the test on that because I was like, I mean, there's got to be what at least 10 people in here, but not realizing that number one, all 10 people that may have been in here were in the draft, but there are no other people.
Yeah.
So we got the two, and we were like waiting for two forever, and I was like, great. So that was pretty silly, but yeah, we're I mean, I'll join whenever. I don't know why. Every time I go on Underdog, it reverts back to do you see the color change maybe because I just changed it back to dark as well. Every time. I don't know why it doesn't
Mm,
save.
yeah.
But
Um,
okay. They're waiting for 5 now. Do you want me to do a quick pause and you can intro the podcast?
sure.
Okay. I'm gonna mute
Hello.
myself and pull you up
It
full. Actually,
really does not
okay.
matter if
I'm
you
gonna
mute
mute
yourself or
myself.
not. Okay. Yes. Hello. Welcome to the Morningscape podcast. This is a audio version of the live stream that DJ and I did on Tuesday, July 16th. If you have not yet, please do check out my newsletter, moods.beehive.com, where I put together the best puck manifesto, part one. But that is the precursor to sort of what we'll be discussing throughout the off season and throughout the summer. DJ, do you want to come back from your underground lair?
Yeah, hi. I just thought I'd pop out of the screen for a second. Yep, back again. Drafting, long time listener. Can't wait to get involved.
Yep. So over on Underdog, it looks like Malik says we're waiting for 5. I guess that means we shouldn't miss this lobby, huh? Do you want to
Oh, you
join
want
it?
to join? Yeah, we can just join it and then talk.
All right.
Yeah,
Sure.
and I'm in. Oh, I'm not in. Now I'm in.
Yeah, mine's taking forever to load. I don't
Okay,
know.
waiting. Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I was
Ooh.
almost late for the one with Billy,
I got
and I
something.
messaged him like, "Hey, yep, you're gonna get the same thing." Was it? Is it location error?
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
because we're
I was
live,
literally
isn't it?
messaging support. We're waiting for 1 now. Do it on your
Fuck.
phone.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, it's full.
I
Did you miss
missed
him?
it. Oh no, wait, did I make it?
Oh, you're
Yeah, I
first
think I
time
made it.
second. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god. This is gonna be either way, I'm actually gonna be really happy because you're either gonna have to stand on your ground or you're gonna have to be a McDavid slappy. And either way, I'm happy.
Let's see. I double joined, so
That's
I had to make sure
unbelievable.
I had to leave the other I had to leave the other lobby. Yeah, perfect. I am number 1. Um yeah, I mean, I
So yeah, I'm just gonna
yeah, I
say that while you are number 1 and I'm number 2, this is actually I believe my first draft being 1 or 2 of 20 technically, including slows. I do have a Matthews and I have some McKinnons at 3. I have not had 1 or 2 yet.
get ready
So
to
the
learn
influencer
McDavid
boys.
because yeah, I'm taking Matthews first.
Okay,
Do you want to share the screen?
the floor is yours. Oh my god, yeah! Holy crap! The floor is yours though. As I pull up the screen, that is a
Yeah.
very good point. After I literally explicitly said I was going to do that.
Yeah, let's see. Let's get the chat. GM. I know you mentioned
Yeah,
that, but this is my second draft. I did the inaugural draft that I posted in the Discord like the day it dropped. That was right before I left. So this is now my second draft. Malik, we mentioned he was keeping
yeah.
us up to speed and made sure we did not miss this great opportunity to actually draft. Which, yes, when I was away, I was
Yep.
watching DJ, and yeah, it took forever to fill lobbies. So I do take credit for this, and certainly not just the random timing that just so happened to work in this case. And what's up, Wookie? Nice to see you. Is everyone else in here a badge brigade bro? Let's see. Yeah,
It's a badge
looks like
brigade. Yeah.
yeah.
There's
So
a very big trade-off I've realized. Hold on, I'm just gonna say that the night drafts, while they fill a lot faster, anytime after 5 well, I'll probably say 6 Eastern, just to give a little bit more time to the West Coast. They definitely fill faster, but it's all badges. If you get in that lucky draft at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, you get a ton of auto drafters and a ton of people. Like today, the 8 picked Demko and then tried to build a good team after that kind of. I don't think they threw. I think they actually were I'm not missing out on my favorite player. And you don't get that at these late night windows.
yeah. And so obviously I mentioned it off the intro, but if you are watching this live stream and have not checked out my newsletter post, I just posted something at 7:30 this evening. The Best Puck Manifesto, basically ripping off, Mike Leone's work over at ETR. That is paywalled, so you won't really be able to read that unless you subscribe to the Best Ball, part of ETR. But I really wanted to, leverage what he did first and foremost because I think it's a really well formatted way to think through the contest and basically how to test the different roster builds and basically how to optimize for long-term equity in these contests. I'm still working on how to connect regular season equity to playoff equity, but we sort of tackle that in two parts in this volume. Some things I have in mind for the future include actual pick values, meaning did you get guys early, past ADP, so on and so forth. Stacking, I think, will be a big deal. And then also, I mean, the number one concept in all of best ball still remains player takes. If you know who the best plays are going to be, it's a long season. We have a lot of time for these edges to display themselves. This isn't a one game DFS slate where, yeah, sure, McDavid might be the best player, 21% of the time, but Matthews will be at 18% of the time. McKinnon might be 16%, it's very much so over the course of a long season. Actually being better at this than your opponents will pay off more often than it will otherwise. So all those things are things that I'm thinking about when I'm drafting and when I'm thinking through how to analyze the draft data that we have. But yeah, just wanted to make sure that everyone's on board with that. Check it out, read it, and hit us up in the Discord or in the chat here if you have any questions. I'm stunned that Steven Stamkos has held on to this 2-3 turn. This is easily the most egregious ADP in the lobby, I think. I mean, this is crazy.
He keeps falling. He keeps falling, and I keep taking him at like 28, 29, 30 when it feels like it's him or Ovechkin. I guess you're still OV over him, which I think is fair, but I think it's pretty close. I'm going to run through the draft really quickly, and then I was going to ask you, does the ad read supposed to be at the beginning? Because that, and do we want to pause to do that, or
no? We moved past Manscaped for this month, so we can do BetterHelp whenever, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Sweet. So yeah, I'm just going to run through this draft in order for the audio listeners, since it will be out there, and give a little take while we're going through, because it's we just drafted again. So yeah, it was Matthews number 1 for Matt, which I think we should definitely stay there just for maybe one more second. And I'll just say again that I'm very indifferent on these three. I don't really think that there's any reason to be completely overexposed to any of them. And then you can make the case for any of them in a vacuum for sure. And we've seen it from all of them. I do understand that in this format, in this contest, in the way the scoring goes, Matthews and McKinnon get a bit of an extra boost over the point totals that McDavid can rack up. But I will also leave the reservation that there is not a player in the world that can score in a fantasy, window like Connor McDavid. And I do think that I want to save all of that for going back to your article when we get into it, maybe more after this draft. But that was, again, Matthews, McDavid, McKinnon. I'm indifferent on the three, and I will just draft them in order of ADP as of now. Next was Pastrnak, Kucherov. That's the natural 2. I'm again pretty indifferent in the order. I want exposure to both. Kaprizov, Rantanen, Tkachuk. I think again that's kind of the next 3 for me. And Forsberg just a touch on the outside comparatively, but not by much. Draisaitl goes 10, which is the furthest I think I've seen him so far. Maybe he's been in the 11 spot before, but normally someone grabs them. I've seen him going 6 again with some of our badgeless drafters that maybe just think like, how is this happening? The Chuck 11, Nylander at 12, then Panarin, Gensel, Jack Hughes back to that Leon drafter. So the Leon drafter who's back on the clock now has gone Leon, Hughes, Dahlin, wingerless through 3 rounds. Let's see if they can land this plane. And also another rarity is the Forsberg drafter. I like Kitties went with Hyman and then Kempe. So Hyman has been absolutely tethered to Leon Draisaitl. Another thing I'd like to talk about. Actually, let's just get right there. I mean, I've been very adamantly against it. It kind of feels like they obviously can both get there, and they can get there on the course of a season. But at this much of your allocation, again, we're talking. I know a lot of your articles about position allocation in the buckets, but thinking through the idea of your first 2 should both be getting there in an optimal build to win the whole thing, you would think, well, the correlation should be good. I don't love that correlation of Hyman and Draisaitl really at all for 2 players getting there together. And I'm wondering if maybe I'm biased by the playoffs as it just never came together, or if you kind of, or if you think like, that's fine.
I don't think that matters really because, frankly, them both getting there is a bet on Edmonton's power play being, not just the league's best, but like historically great. Because clearly that's the only way this top six is going to support three superstar fantasy outputs. I mean, clearly McDavid should be the leading scorer on that team. And then, yeah, if Draisaitl and Hyman both get there, I don't think this Edmonton team is going to be some incredible 5-on-5 scoring team. Like, it's going to be through their power play. And so those two guys, yeah, I don't like either of them necessarily at their current ADPs, but I don't think stacking them is necessarily an issue whatsoever. Since your other guests are too polite, I would just like to point out that you absolutely railroaded by saying, one, let's stop on Matthews for a little bit. And then you proceeded to read 14 straight draft picks in a row, giving takes on just about every single one of them and never throwing it to me to talk about the Matthews thing. So I just wanted to say excellent job, DJ. Well done in your hosting duties.
No, I said I want to circle back to that conversation after we finish, is what I said.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'll listen back then.
I will let you have that if you'd like, because I kind of wanted to keep it moving in some regards, because again, we're going to get way behind. And number two is, like I said, I wanted to say that I'm kind of spreading my exposure, and I want to like have the conversation after about like your stance and why I'm spreading exposures and what you found, and if that's changed your mind in any capacity. Obviously, no. At this point, it seems like a no. You're back on the clock. I just took Matt Barzal over Chris Kreider. You take Owen Tippett, and
yeah, the defenseman, or sorry, the goalies dried up real quick. So,
yeah, he takes Markstrom. I mean, I don't know if I've been this close to grabbing JT Miller with Connor McDavid in my life. I think I have to just not do it, because I feel like I'm going to get absolutely buried at wing. But man, I was really thinking about it. I'm gonna grab Konechny. I've been a little bit team Konechny over Tippett. I just feel like I get the upside. The upside of Tippett is higher, and I'm sure the math will prove that. But Konechny is just never going to lose his role. It feels like he was truly one of the best, most impactful defensive players last year in Torts' system, and is going to continue to see the run no matter what. Where we saw Tippett at times kind of disappear. Hope it doesn't happen again, but you never know. Now let's get back to everything. And I kind of I went through some of the first picks. I'm going to keep going kind of team by team and seeing if I found anything odd. I mean, Makar, Yossi, all these guys, everything kind of makes sense. I guess really the first thing that comes up is 21 Connor Hellebuck, 22 is UC Saros, 26 I go with Igor. You went with Marner and Ovechkin over that, getting ahead of the goalie avalanche, which kind of like not buried you completely because you still have time to catch up. But my question is, and again, I've said this from the beginning, like goalies are going too late. That doesn't mean you need to jump up at pick 15 and take a goalie because they're going too late. But are you still feeling that way as well, that maybe this 2-3 turn where the goalies are starting to go is even maybe too late?
Yeah. Another thing that, I noticed in sort of just sorting through data and trying to, come to grips with everything that I've been working on for the past month is that the goalie scoring is just on a completely different plane from skater scoring. And that makes it really hard for me to just like have like this intuitive, like, here's how they compare to the other draft picks. So I really don't have an answer to that question. What I do know is that I think once the goalie run starts, you really don't want to miss like getting one or even two of those guys. And so basically it's like, if the board dictates that they go in rounds 2 and 3, then fine, I'll take some in rounds 2 and 3. If the board says, well, actually they go 4 and 5, I'm not going to try and race and get my favorite goalie at the end of the third round, for instance, just because I don't know that I have that big of a lean toward like the top 5. Like I just think all these guys are very likely to get 55, maybe 60 starts, and that's really what I'm looking for. So yeah, I did miss out on that by picking Marner and Ovechkin, but frankly, getting Marner with Matthews, sure, I will happily scoop that up. I'm also stepping into this having not really looked at ADP or done any drafts for a week. And my evening was spent frantically rereading what I had written, piecemeal throughout my week away to just make sure that everything was coherent. So I really didn't spend much time preparing on the hockey side of things. So this is one of the more blind drafts that I'm doing. I think, though, that Ovechkin is probably better than Reinhart, Robertson, even Gensel. I think he's just better than. I mean, we saw in the second half of the year that he was basically back to doing what he had done in years past. Maybe the age curve, is actually going to come and he's just going to fall off a cliff. But we were sort of saying that in the first half of last year, and it just didn't continue. I mean, Ovechkin was Ovechkin, and this team exists for him to shoot. GA pointed out a couple weeks ago that maybe I'm rating shot volume too high on its own. But I also think that's the most, I guess, like predictable measure of a player. Guys like Artemi Panarin can come out of nowhere and have really high shot rates one year, but that doesn't really mean that like their career averages should be thrown out. And guys like McDavid, same thing. He had a really spike. He basically said, "I want to score a bunch of goals" last year, and he did. And then this year, he still scored. He's still McDavid, but he wasn't the sort of transcendent volume shooter. Ovechkin is that. He's been that. He will be that for basically until the day he retires, I think. And so on a team that I think will be at least competitive, I don't really see how he's, the 10th winger off the board or whatever he was.
Wookie, you there, bud? I'm thinking Gabe Velarde may have been an auto pick. Yeah, I've been really struggling in this range between these three defensemen exactly.
I don't know
where it's like,
hold on, look at this wing board. Was that an auto pick? I don't know.
Listen,
that could just be a stand.
I am going to do the Mackenzie Weegar for the first time. My first time taking him. Just a great conversation, honestly, to get into. And I guess maybe we'll jump ahead for now. Maybe we'll go back at the end and go through the draft as we always do. I guess the biggest bull case on Mackenzie Weegar is no matter where his role went, he still was able to get there in some capacity. But when his role was at its peak, he was truly one of the best scorers in fantasy. But that role disappeared to Marabanov on the power play. That role got increased when they traded Hanifin, but there's still Rasmus Anderson. So I think he's a really solid guy around this range. I still almost think he's going too early, which is why I haven't taken him. But I think it's so much Dougie Hamilton. And you can make it pretty, I would say, somewhat similar that Dougie Hamilton could lose role as well. And when he loses his role on offense, it's, he'll still be shooting, but that power play role goes to Luke Hughes, and he's just not going to get there in any capacity. Wing did really dry up. I'm going to do the Alex Tuch situation and ruin the Sabres drafter's life. Gabe Velarde's been one of the more safety picks for me, and I hate to see his ADP rise as someone takes him, 60 picks above ADP. It's only going to go up from here this early on because he's been a really nice person to fall back on. That I feel like it was one of the first games I remember I think it was honestly maybe even Noah in the first one where it was like, this is another one that makes absolutely no sense. And it kind of seemed like after that, I just only seen him going earlier and earlier. So I do wonder a couple things. Number one, you go with Adin Hill. This has been another of the biggest risers, and for good reason. Do you think that you're going to, at the end of the day, when we look back on everything and see that you got him at 72, that's still going to be a good value?
I think it'll be okay. I'm not particularly high on Adin Hill. Like, I took him because I compared him to I honestly think I like Tristan Jarry more, just straight up, than Adin Hill. But the 13 picks of ADP, I honestly wouldn't hate getting Tristan Jarry, next. I do think Samsonov is actually going to get a chance in Vegas. Bruce Cassidy is a master at goalies. I mean, we saw it in Boston. We've seen it in Vegas. If Samsonov has anything, I think he'll get a chance to show it in Vegas. So I don't really see Hill getting anything close to 55 starts. But I could be wrong. That was very much more just I took that because it fit my structure that I want more so than it was anything in particular. I definitely wanted Brad Marchand. I think that there's a chance that that Boston one is like the perfection line with Elias Lindholm instead of Patrice Bergeron. I don't think that's particularly likely, but I'll at least take the chance on that versus some of these other bums that are hanging out still on the wing board. I will say a lot of the fixes to the positions, it does feel different. Drafting centers late and drafting wings early, it feels like there's a little bit more availability, sort of in this like 50 to 70 range as far as the wing position is concerned. And so I think that there's sort of an argument to getting just whoever falls out of that range. Basically starting with the Philly guys like we talked about, and then pretty much all the way through. I think those guys could all be potential, I don't know, top 10 wing producers make sense, but like it doesn't feel like any of those guys outside of maybe Vetrano, who I think ADP still fits in that range. All those guys I think have massive upside, and then I think it really falls off after that. Outside of maybe a couple spike guys who just randomly shoot 23% for an entire season.
I think that's fair. Few comments. Number one, we did get the Connect the Over typic for the contract year. That makes perfect sense to me as a avid drafter of Travis Konechny last year and again this year.
But DJ,
that is a really interesting turn where like
will Konechny be signing a contract in a new tax state or a tax state? Because that's all that matters these days, apparently, not how good you are or anything.
No, it doesn't. So that's a good point. I didn't consider the tax implications. So thank you for letting me know.
You're welcome.
A very fun conversation that I'd love to get into more. Anyway, I was looking at the comments and that you took Morrissey. I was going to take him and I didn't, and then you did, and I should have, but I kind of just wanted my fifth winger. Okay, let me let you pick. Let me pick first. We'll get back to the comments.
I guess I'm just going to be a Mo Sider slappy. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, not surprising. You are a slappy in general. Take my second center here. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do the Skinner McDavid garbage. Go 1-6-1-1 and not care about anything else in this world. Igor, McDavid, Uyghur, and then just load the hell up that wing to start the draft.
Like,
what are you gonna say?
Is the path just Jeff Skinner scoring 35 on 5 goals? Like, otherwise, yes. I don't. I don't see it.
He's jumped too high. Okay, let's go through the comments first, and then we'll get back to everything else, and we can the last comment we can loop back in on this. So, Michael Mann and or Count MC is also he won't show. It's also in on Ovi, and I feel like this has been. I think Ovi has been one of the more interesting case studies, and a guy that like has fallen so fast and for good enough reason, but now it definitely feels like an overcorrection. Now, I mean, we talked about this right from the first stream and continued that conversation about Ovechkin, where it's like, well, he was deeply unlucky. Then he kind of stopped being unlucky. So are we saying that age isn't as much of a factor? And again, like I think that you can make a bold case for a lot of guys up top. Obviously, that's why they're getting drafted up there. And the bold case on Ovi is that like he gets back to somewhat of the form we've seen in the past, where he was quite easily. I mean, think back 5 years ago. This is like second overall. If he even gets close and does it for the right stretches, especially if you get him with an elite center, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I kind of do like him when you pick 1, 2, or 3 as like that upside case if it gets there in short windows, because the upside is still to the moon. Any other thoughts on Ovi?
Yeah, no. I'm gonna do a full like newsletter about actual player results from last year and sort of like how different players contributed to the theoretical playoff EV that I calculate within the article that I wrote. But like I will just say, like, when you look at spike weeks, when you look at sort of contribution to like teams, looking at the wings that have a better finals, I guess expected value like per player. I don't really know how to format it, but basically at wing you're looking at Panarin, Forsberg, Kaprizov, Kucherov, Pasta, Nylander, the Kachucks, and Ovi and Mikko Rantanen. So Stamkos is really the egregious one, I think. Like Ovi's maybe fine to go where he goes, but the fact that his ADP is behind Steven Stamkos is just insane. Like I'm not even sure Steven Stamkos plays in the top 6 in Nashville, let alone on the top line, which I don't think he's doing. Stamkos is a one-trick pony at this point in his career, and we're not even sure that that one trick is going to be on display for a team that employs Philip Forsberg. So like, I mean, please keep drafting Steven Stamkos, but I will have 0% Steven Stamkos and happily be wrong if he scores, 45 goals because he just steals them all from Forsberg or something. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just can't believe that he's still up there. I thought for sure he would sink like a stone.
I guess I'm certainly not a team 0% Steven Stamkoser, but I'm I have happily been a part of the watching him fall and watching people say, screw it, it's a winger, I'm just going to take him bandwagon that exists. I mean, I feel like I have to take Bo Horvat just in case you get crazy here. Lock it up with my Matt Barzal, get my second center in. It's not the position I need the most, but I'm not going to miss out. If you want Zibanejad or Suzuki, they're all yours. We'll get to more comments after this. After this turn, you go with Michkov. I haven't taken Michkov yet, and I'm not going to lock in my 7th wing spot at round 10. So respect.
I very much did not need. I don't need to take a center, so I will just take the 2 highest wings on the board and 2 guys who I'm totally comfortable with at their respective prices in Michkov and Gaudreau. I think I like Cutter in a vacuum more than Michkov, but Cutter goes 30 picks later. In this draft, though, I had already taken Tippett, so why not? That seems fine. Mm-hmm. Let's see if pick 224 updated while I was away. They did not.
Yeah,
okay.
I took Korchekov. I absolutely need a second goalie, and I've taken Arison in like 70-something% of drafts. Korchekov's risen like crazy. I worry on it, but I'm just gonna buy on him and move on. Like I just don't need. I literally have like 70% right now through 20 drafts on Arison, and I'm just gonna bet on someone else in the similar window.
Yeah, I've already seen. I mean, you were getting him last round, and I think that makes sense. I don't despise it or anything, but certainly not a guy that I'm going to go to the mat for, especially at these prices on a team that I like. Torts is fun, but do we really think they're going to be a playoff caliber team this year?
Yeah. And by you're talking about Arison right now, and I took Korchekov again, but both of them have risen like crazy. Both of them you could make a very easy bull case for and a very easy case against. I think it's easier to make the case against Korchekov, which is why I've largely. Agree. The other part of that is that Korchekov was legitimately a 15th, 16th round pick and now is going into 10th, 11th. And Arison also has risen over time from like a 14th to like an 11th, like we see him go here. So a little bit more gradual on his rise. So you're not going to, there's no slam dunks in round 11 because goalie, as we've just proven time and time and again, and anyone with a brain in their head gets it, you got to draft him early-ish. And I am relying heavily on Shesterkin to win the Vezina right now.
Yeah. The main problem with Kochetkov is I think Arison can go for, 3 starts in a week. I don't ever see Kochetkov getting more than 2 per week. So that's a pretty big fear of mine. I don't know that I pulled in my stat profiling that I did the number of games played per week, and that'll be very annoying to go back and do if I did not. But I am very interested to see if if there's like a true correlation between like uh, goalie scoring and just the number of games played more than anything else. Because it's really cool if you play 45 games in a season, but it's way cooler if you have 15 weeks of 3 games and then just the rest of the weeks you don't play any. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm not really sure what to do with goalie yet at this point because, like you say, I mean, all these prices are super inflated, and I think it's still just beat the rush on beat the rush on goalie. Like waiting is just so badly gonna hurt you. Last year we got pretty lucky with Montembeau. I was basically like, oh, I'll take Kakinen and Montembeau at 15%, and one of them will hit, right? And Montembeau did, and especially late. I think that was right after they traded Jake Allen, right? So it was him and Primo sort of manning
Yeah.
the net. So that was very much a bailout. I believe Montembeau might have even been on my team that finished in third. Uh, but I don't see any spots like that at this point in time. Uh, like as far as true, like,
Yeah.
last round undrafted type guys, because I don't trust Mackenzie
Well,
Blackwood. um,
yeah.
in a
Well, I
similar
mean,
spot.
again, you literally just admitted the reason. Like, there are guys that could have it, but they're a trade away from really having it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that might be worth a conversation if you're drafting in the last 2 rounds for goalie of like, what does that look like? Which again was just my case for Dostal or Dostal.
Mhm.
Dostal? Why am I?
Yeah,
Yeah. But that's kind
I,
of my
I
bull
get
case for
that.
him. Is like the most
I
likely
certainly,
guy to get traded in that bunch is Gibson.
yeah, I certainly do get that. Um, I don't know. I guess Dostal is a pretty analogous guy to Montembeau last year. Um, I guess my
Yeah.
fear is that John Gibson seems like he's the starter until he proves otherwise. Versus Jake Allen, I don't think was ever going to be a no doubt starter. So like
Yeah.
you're
But
really
why?
only banking on late season production for Dostal. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a reason for that. Like the reason is they want to trade him and they still have maybe some value. And like if
I
you
don't know.
bench him and you don't play him and he's already doesn't seemingly want to be there that much, you're really now putting yourself in a position where his value is plummeted. So
Yeah,
I
I
guess
guess
my
do
personal
they
belief is
really?
that I well and like you but the thing is you're not taking Dostal as like, oh crap, I need my second goalie. Like, let me grab Lucas Dostal. Like, he's your last guy in on a team that already has Igor. He's like, when else is he scoring? Like, by the way, I'm taking this Morgan Riley dip right here. Just I'm sorry in
Yeah.
advance. I feel like you may have had to jump on him at that
No,
point
I
with Matthews, but I'm not going to let Morgan Riley get 50 picks past ADP. And then you took the goalie I was considering, but
I
um,
yeah, I'm
I
gonna
think just
have I'm gonna
wait,
have a lot of Dustin
wait.
Wolf. I was being kind of contrite when I realized what I was saying out loud, in that I fully disagreed with what I
Yeah,
was saying. Shoot, I have another pick to make. Uh, okay,
yeah, in 3
I'll
seconds.
I'll take McAvoy. I was looking. I don't know if anyone else is crazy enough to play the Down Goes Brown games that he posts on the Athletic, but the game where he has you like do your preseason predictions, he had the Norris like as one of the things. You have to name 5 guys who'll be in the top 10 in Norris voting, whatever. And I looked at my entry that I made, last September, and apparently I had Charlie McAvoy as a potential Norris finalist, or not finalist, but top 10 Norris guy for last year. That didn't happen, but yeah, I guess I was high on McAvoy last year, so why not go back to the mat with McAvoy this year? Um, yeah, if
Oh yeah, mine got shredded.
yeah,
Absolutely shredded.
I had a decent build. I don't know how it sorted. I didn't see what place it was or anything, but it had like 75 points, and the winner had like 101. So
All right, let's get back to the comments here. But yeah, Billy Jones just came in. Only person to like the YouTube. I mean, we're never gonna get there. I'm literally trying to catch Mr. Feast, and I'm never gonna get to him at this rate. Come on, guys.
good.
We never even really talked too much on Velarde. Wookie did mean to do that. Did mean to take him at
Um,
82. Seems a little bit high to me, but live a little. I mean,
I
Kitchen's gonna get to
frankly,
the hockey streets any minute now.
yeah, I don't have any sort of a basis on the per game stats, the projection for the season for Velarde. So based on the guys who was going around, I don't know. I think I'd rather have Velarde than Alex Tuck straight up.
Yeah.
That's the name who I saw at the top of the list, and then when I saw he took Velarde, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You scroll down a bit, and I think there are some guys who are slightly less reliant on their teammates. I think Velarde's pretty reliant on Mark Scheifele maintaining his high level efficiency. And then, of course, Kyle Connor being a true elite offensive player. But he does complement his line mates perfectly. And so if you're telling me that, Gabe Velarde's healthy, then yeah, I certainly have no issue making him one of your stands for the year. It does seem like the team is fully ready to commit to him as being like their power play net front guy, and really just having a firm role. So, yeah, that's just a good player.
The next comment is, so long ago, it's when I took Mackenzie Weegar. I will be doing a little article myself, and Weegar will be involved in it. So just keep your eye out. I'm going to talk a bit about guys like Mackenzie Weegar and others. Eichel slipped to 60. He's just continued to fall from like the 20s way, way, way down. I do think Vegas is a good conversation in general. So maybe we'll save that for now. Yep. I mean, I am totally fine when you start with a guy like Connor McDavid and you're saying that he's going to be the best player in fantasy, that you just absolutely go crazy, take all the wingers in the world and try to get as much into the conversation of winning the wing position as you can. Then we get to the Stamkos debate. We get right back to it here. I do think this is going to be one of those hills that you stand up on very proud. Will you win or will you lose? Again, I think that I'm going to end up lower on Stamkos than most because I just am. But I'm certainly not a zero Stamkos guy.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
but I do agree. I don't know how he finds himself off the first power play. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll try it. I think they'll use Forsberg on the strong side. They'll use O'Reilly and Yossi, of course, in their roles, which are not really in question. And then it's just a matter of, are you planting Marchessault in front of the goalie? Are you moving Forsberg there for some reason? Like Stamkos, it feels like just has to take Phil Forsberg's role for him to be in anywhere close to that ADP. And I just don't see Stamkos as being viable at 5-on-5 anymore. And that's that's a huge hurdle because on this Nashville team, I don't see how he's fed easy looks at 5-on-5. I can't imagine you break up O'Reilly, Nyquist, Forsberg after last year. So if you're telling me that Novak, Marchessault, and Stamkos is going to be your second line, I mean, I like Andrew Brunette, but good luck, coach. I don't know what you're getting out of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like the Malik point of like Stamkos and Marchessault should be closer is like, that's a good point because, yeah, like what is the bull case on either of them and why is it so dramatically different? And like, I don't know. I do agree with that, and I don't really think Marchessault is mispriced right now. I am going to grab Dylan Cousins to be my last center in. Just might as well project a younger player who's at least shown it at the NHL level in an elite way. That was just again, look at the shots on goal, 200 to 211, and he had just one of the more miserable seasons with 18 goals last year for Cousins, but before the 31 previous. Hopefully under Lindy Ruff and maybe some better players around him, he can get back to form. And again, I made this point, and I'm going to make it probably every time I talk about him. Like they were asking him to be the number one shutdown center. He's not that guy. Again, I've been lower on him, maybe in like a totality sense of like what he could be as a, an NHL player, but that's not in fantasy. Like I think he is maybe a good number two center, maybe not, but right up there. And not a shutdown center, and that's fine. You take Malkin, and that's the other guy I was considering here. So you're getting right back on the Malkin train, it sounds like.
I think so, and I think you're on board it too, right?
Yeah. Oh, I've taken a ton of them. Yeah. I mean, that is a distinction that I would. It's the opposite ends. It's like, is one going to get back on track, or is one dead? And like, because I'm not thinking Cousins is completely dead at this point, but if Malkin is even close, the role is there for him. So, see ya.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to actually grab Dostal as well with my pick, and you took McTavish to close out center. So I already talked about Dostal. Why don't you talk about McTavish?
Well, I'm just going to say if I can get a guy in Malkin who I don't feel like I have to try too hard to imagine a world where he gets 80 points this season, if I can get him in the last 3 rounds, I might have him in, a gajillion % of drafts, because he's a guy who, when he's on, he takes control of his, of the puck. He shoots. He's on the power play, shooting. He's probably not going to be that guy, but until I do a further deep dive into his last season to really figure out what I don't even know what went wrong versus like how irreversible is his downward slide. I'm certainly going to try and be very heavy on Malkin. McTavish is just a bet on a player who I really like. There's certainly a plethora of options that I could take, but I figured I know off the top of my head that 2 years ago that McTavish was a top 5 guy in terms of shots per minute on the power play. I think Cutter Gauthier takes the role that McTavish was playing, and so I'm a little bit curious as to how the situation with McTavish, Leo Carlson, and Cutter fares as far as this season is concerned. I think McTavish, though, has the most malleable skill set as far as move him to the net front or to the bumper, and I think you could see him be productive from there. I'm not sure you could stay the same for Leo Carlson, which makes me wonder if he goes to like the Joe Thornton strong side on the power play or if he goes to the power play too. But I feel pretty strongly that, obviously the defense spot's spoken for. And I think Killorn will be on that top unit in the true net front position. So it's just a matter of how do you deploy the talent around those spots that really maximizes them. And because we've seen McTavish at an NHL level with his 3rd overall draft pick pedigree already be a productive fantasy player, I think that's a good player to bet on if you want a piece of the Anaheim Ducks this season, which I'm not saying you really do. But, it's certainly something to think about if you are high on the Ducks, because I think the era of Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras is over.
I will start by disagreeing on the overall take on not wanting a piece of the Ducks, because there is how many guys you just named, and they're all, besides Vetrano, going really, really late. And if we're all saying
and they're all better than
Vetrano is
Vetrano,
a really bad pick, another factor in the entire conversation. But I just feel like there's no way that at least a couple of these guys don't smash at ADP. It doesn't feel maybe equivalent to your Montembeault versus Kakkonen, but like I'm going to get pieces of all of them. I probably end up with the least amount of Zegras and Terry. I don't think I've taken either yet. I just feel like like you're saying, they kind of given up on those guys in large respects, but I think it's Terry a little over Zegras. I get the skill level of Zegras, but it seems like he's fallen out of favor. And if he does get moved, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be into a spot that will utilize him to the best ability. But who knows? I mean, that's the bull case on him, honestly, is like a team loses a guy and he goes in, and like we know what he can do in a big enough role. So we're coming to the end of the draft as well. Laine is an interesting guy to discuss. Last year, we were both incredibly high on Patrick Laine, and I'm not going to run the numbers on what he could have gotten in 82 games. I think it could have been fine, but obviously there was a lot going on, even in that, in that sort of a conversation of like what he could have been. My belief, at least, because I don't think we have a full painted picture of what's going on right now, but since we don't have a full painted picture, I think it kind of leads me down the same path of a lot of these beat reporters might respect his privacy a little too much. I guess requested by being in the players assistance program. And all that we know is that there's complications with moving a guy while they're in the players assistance program. So that's just really to say it's even more of a question mark than maybe you could even try to conjure up. Like, it's not only a question mark that where he'll be, it's really if he'll play and when he'll be back, even so we'll know more. I just feel like there's no need to buy on it right now. You can, as an absolute last pick, and maybe a build like I did where I went Connor, Barzal, Konechny, Tuck, McCann, Skinner. Like if I didn't take Stankoven, maybe that's where you buy on it. But like you might get a 0. And if you can't afford that, which you really can't, no matter what, like it's just tough.
I
So back to
fully
you.
agree. Again, he's not even out of the program. Like it's not like he's out and cleared and he just wants a new change of scenery. He's literally not even out yet. Who knows how long that'll take? So until there's further news, until he's in camp with the team, I'm not going to suffer the same fate as Jacob Rana from last year. These little edges that like, oh, I'm so smart. I'm going to get, 8% of a guy who could score 40 goals. Like I still believe there was an outcome last year where Jake Rana played on the top line of Robert Thomas and, absolutely smashed. But there's just no sense in taking that risk. It sort of harkens back to the point before you were making about I don't know. We were talking about some player, but we're talking about the Ducks, and
Zegras.
there are 4 forwards per power play, 32 teams in the NHL. There are over 100 power play one jobs up for grab. If you have a bad team and you don't firmly believe that a guy's going to be on the top power play, you just should not be picking them in this type of format. This is not the NFL where there are 3 producers per team at the wide receiver position and everyone else is just hoping for a long touchdown. Like it just doesn't really work in the same way. So I'm pretty uncomfortable with the idea of taking a stand on a guy like Line A at this point.
I didn't get it in time, I don't think. Nope. I was actually thinking about taking Cam York instead of Goss to spare, but I missed it.
That's pretty much the same thing. Okay, so here's a guy.
I know, it's the same thing. I know.
So last name off the board, and I wanted to talk about this because I just saw something. I guess it went to closed. I took Warren Fogle, and that's
was Warren Fogle.
because I saw something about the Byfield extension, and when they talked to Quentin Byfield, they talked about him playing center for the LA Kings. And that's really interesting as far as how the team is structured because last year obviously Pierre-Luc Dubois was brought in to be their next coming of Kopitar, basically their transition from Deneau and Kopitar to a Dubois and Byfield 1-2 punch down the middle. Obviously now Dubois is gone. It's another year older for Deneau and Kopitar. If Byfield's going to play center all year, I don't know that that's necessarily a great thing for a guy like Adrian Kempe or even Kevin Fiala, although we know Kevin Fiala can be pretty productive at 5-on-5 with whoever, including the husk of Pierre-Luc Dubois. But the right wing is completely barren for this hockey team now. And so I think there's a good chance that Warren Fogle is their top line right wing. I think more Deneau Fiala stays intact. And if we're really going to, say Alex Laferriere is their first line right winger for the next 10 years, look, I'm all for it. I love my Harvard boys who shoot chuck pucks, but, I don't think he's necessarily all that talented. And I think Warren Fogle is really talented. We know that he can do it from a rates perspective for fantasy. He's had a long career, dating back from his Carolina days where he was like the AHL's leading shooting percentage player of all time. And then over to Edmonton, where he actually shot, he meshed well with their talented players. If he's playing alongside Kopitar or even Byfield for that matter, I think he's a viable punt as like your, literal last player taken. So that's why I took Warren Fogle. I don't know that I'll be super high on him, but I did think it was really interesting to see that Quentin Byfield was going into this year talking about playing center, pretty exclusively. So we'll see how that fares in training camp.
Yeah, I'm going to join the next lobby while we discuss the draft we got going on here. If you're down for that, if
Sure.
it doesn't fill in so long, we'll probably cut it at some point. But we'll go team by team. I think let's start at the 12 hole, and we'll get to our teams at the end, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
Or is that stupid?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Let me join the draft. Okay, cool. 6 remaining for the next draft, by the way.
Mims, me. I don't know. Miami spelled weird. With an S. I don't know. So Nylander Panarin, I've already gone over how I think that's like incredibly good. I honestly today I had this like really long thought about because I picked in the 12, and I picked 12. So I took Forsberg. And then I'm like, Nylander or Panarin? So I did wonder if you had a take on that, or I mean, they're going to go together quite often, so who really cares? But I just wondered if you had a take.
Yeah, I think I'm Nylander between those two, and you know, it's mostly because it's different when it's the last year that the guy did it, but usually Tigers don't change their stripes when it comes to like shot rate year over year. And so the explosion that Panarin had, it it could be the new normal, but that seems pretty far fetched. If you were telling me Panarin went at the 2-3 turn, I think I'd be much more comfortable with it. But yeah, I think I would take Kyle Connor. I think I would take I honestly think I would take Mitch Marner ahead of Nylander. However, so yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting situation. I certainly don't plan to be like 50% on Kyle Connor as a result of this, but that's just sort of what my gut instinct is telling me.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Gensel goes 14. Seems a bit high to me, to be honest. I've wavered between a lot of guys in that spot, and when you don't get Panarin to get to you at 14 for normal reasons of people being smart, it is tough. But yeah, Gensel a little bit early for me at 14. He's not my favorite of kind of the upcomers. The draft that took Draisaitl 10 took Jack Hughes at 15. Also, I'm doing this all wrong. Oh my god, I'm going team by team. Okay, Jesus, let me go team by team. I thought you were going to stop me, but I guess not. So Nylander
I was
Panarin
just gonna let you
team
cook.
that we started with. I'm going to stick back. Yeah, I don't know. My brain is fried. Evan Bouchard at 36. The defense, both of them kind of slipped in Dahlin and Bouchard, so I get it. Getting him at 36, not correlated, doesn't really matter. And then Eichel at 60, that was already mentioned. It is interesting for sure. Every center slipped, other than around the same ADP, and Bedard got a little bit, maybe a touch above where he normally does. But yeah, Crosby, Miller, all these guys slipped quite a bit. Smart lobby. Quinn Hughes, and I guess that's where I sort of say maybe unnecessary because you didn't have a goalie yet. They go back to back, UPL and Gustafsson. I love Gustafsson. I'm a little bit lower on UPL. Maybe it's my Sabres bias working against me, but it is what it is. Trocheck, second center, and then Kane, Toffoli, Zuccarello. Really no problems there. Zuccarello boldly, maybe it somehow works, maybe, but I don't know. Maybe not. Probably doesn't. Logan Thompson is the last goalie in. Get pretty thin at the end. Shifley, Tom Wilson, Rasmus Anderson. So, any thoughts on this team?
Uh, I'm interested in what Lindy Ruff does with the goalies. There was a lot of smoke last year when they brought in Devin Levi uh, that they were considering basically doing like the college workload for Levi, which was basically play him 3 and 4 nights, play him all if they have a back to back, play him in those, but then you give him a week off. And so I don't necessarily think you do that with UPL as well. But I am interested sort of to see if like they actually do something creative with their deployment, because I don't know, it was written about a few too many times for me to think that it was just, beat writers sort of just, making shit up out of nowhere. And we've heard teams like Carolina, float the same sort of idea that it's not necessarily the games that cause issues. It's the travel, it's the practice, it's the preparation. As far as what causes goalies to break down. So that's a really long-winded way to say I have no fucking idea what the Sabres are going to do in that. But that's at least a situation where the uncertainty feels a bit more. There's a bit more upside laced within that uncertainty. So I like the bet. Gustafsson scares me. It's threading a needle between Marc-Andre Fleury falling off a cliff and Jesper Wallstead not being able to ascend to the throne. But that's why he goes this late. I think if you're already betting on Minnesota, that's a better pick. So when you're betting on Matt Boldy, you're betting on them being a pretty competitive team, able to score somewhat effectively. So that's fine. Otherwise, I don't have a ton of time for Kane Wilson types, but if I'm drafting Evgeny Malkin, who am I to say that these old washed up bums are actually the ones you don't need? Because I'm just taking old guys too. Matt Zuccarello, yeah. So whatever.
Just sit down now. It's been a long day. Good points all around.
Have you been standing up this entire time?
I normally stand for the entire video, but
that is insane.
Yeah, I will not for the long streams because I was in my living room, which I normally get better Wi-Fi. But my fiance just told me that it makes her. She literally said, when you're not streaming in here like every day, could you just like not have it in here because we can't really use the living room and it feels like I'm in like I don't know. She's like, I just didn't really want to be in a studio when she sits on the couch, which I understand. That was a long-winded way of saying that, yeah, I've been standing for like all of our podcasts and streams this entire year.
Okay.
I've been trying to stand a lot more when I do stuff. I'm trying to be a healthy boy. Anyways, is it full yet, by the way? Because we got through one team. Okay, good. Yeah, waiting on 3. So let's go a little faster. No, but I wanted to take a picture of the stream setup because my family is like freaking out about a bunch of garbage, and I was like, I'm streaming hockey drafts. It's July. If anyone wants to join me. So anyways, number 2, that is Malik, by the way, I've learned. Okay. I don't know. I did not know that, and I feel like he's been here a lot, and I feel bad that I didn't know that. He's like, that's me, and I'm like, oh crap. Like, I don't know why I just didn't know that until now. But a really, really good NHL player, and the dailies I know was absolutely crushing. I'm going to get back in those streets as well this Europa League. Batachuk, Jake Gensel, already went into a lot of detail on Jake Gensel. Ottinger, Vasilevsky, so went with the 2 bully goalie build, which I have done at least once. But yeah, that's a heck of a way to get your goalies done early. Fiala, DeBrincat, Raymond. So that is a 5-wing, 2 goalie start. Followed up with Barkov, Larkin, Sergachev, Faber, Sanderson, Hintz, and then finished off Bertuzzi, Bjorkstrand, and Marco Rossi. I guess the question is why take Rossi there, but it just feels like without any correlating piece, you're kind of betting the thread a very specific needle. I do understand that you only have, a center taken in round 8 and nothing before then. So if you were going to do something a little bit goofy and not take that last goalie, like I said, I've done this, so I'm not saying it's wrong. I just don't know if you needed to allocate it to a guy like Marco Rossi. Like if there's just no centers left, which I feel like there kind of wasn't, you might as well just take in defense. I think honestly could have been better served because you did get Barkov, Larkin, and Hintz. Like there's some upside there.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I'm just looking at the advancement rate for 2 goalie teams, and I know that most 2 goalie teams don't have 2 legitimate studs like Vatsy and Ottinger.
Yeah, there's a lot of auto draft teams had 2 goalies, if I recall correctly. I remember. Yeah. So, and it's hard to, I'm sure, to remove that out of the. I guess you could. Yeah, so we could talk about that upstream.
So it was tried 1,600 times and it advanced at about 12.5% versus 17.5% for 3 goalie builds. Obviously there's a lot of contextual factors behind that.
Could you make it like easily remove any team that drafted like more than 14 players before 80? But then again, that might you know what I mean? Like if they got like 14 values or more, that would look like they're definitely auto picking. But then again, that would only be towards the end, and we know how much things move over time, so that might actually be more difficult, and it might take away a lot of good teams that it shouldn't. So,
if you're asking if I can basically remove "quote unquote" dead teams from the pool,
yeah,
eventually, possibly. I don't think that'll be my first priority though, because I don't know. I think that the capital buckets handle that decently well enough, and it'll be pretty obvious when we look at actual ADP value versus ADP capital, strictly speaking. It'll be obvious, who the auto draft teams are. I was able to do that in Excel and basically show that, yeah, if you get every player before ADP or whatever after ADP, it probably means your team's an uncorrelated, unstructured mess, which, did happen to be true. And those teams all sucked. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's possible that I can set something up to flag those teams, but I don't think it's overly prioritized right now. Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
let's keep it moving. Team 3. We'll just do maybe one takeaway from each team. So
okay, I'm going to say this team is not very good because you drafted 3 centers and then you say, oh, Nick Suzuki, that's my guy. Okay, sure.
Just to service the audio listener a little bit, Draisaitl, Hughes, Dahlin, Keller, Marchessault, Thompson, Lafreniere, Peterka. My feelings on Peterka. The 8th round seems a little bit high. Didn't get goalies till Connor Ingram, Kemper, Suzuki. Like you said, kind of in the middle there for no reason. Charlie Lindgren. I guess try to save it the best you can. And those 3 goalies do make some sense. There's someone here talking about how, Lindgren's a steal. Yeah. It is tough to see either Lindgren or Logan Thompson getting enough starts to being incredibly valuable. And I do worry about the split taking away from their upside. So I think they're probably largely correct, but they're one injury away from one of them being a massive steal. They're one, whatever. So I do lean Lindgren over Thompson for sure. And the ADP is kind of correlated to that. But this team's dead. You just can't catch up with Jake Neighbors and Luke Evangelista with only, I don't know. The team it's tough. You just can't do that at center. If you went Draisaitl and Jack Hughes and then you never took another center, like maybe we could at least consider a conversation, but I don't know. I wouldn't have done it. Next, you want to just read off? You can start, Mr. Kitties.
Yes, I like Kitties. Forsberg, Hyman, Kempe, Sorokin, Skinner, Dobson, Sebastian Aho, Marty Necas, Quentin Byfield, Kadri, Montour, DeBrusk, Lindholm, Theodore, Fitzmalka, and Nyquist.
I meant to click full screen. I clicked the X. So sorry for people watching along as you read the names because I exited out of it. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That seems good. Necas Byfield is a little interesting, but well, what am I really going to do with that? Both of those guys clearly do have potential, I think, to be more than they have been, and do it for a full season. I don't, especially now that Byfield's going to be playing center the full year. If he gets, locked in with Fiala or Kempe, I think that's a clear buy signal, but I don't think that'll be the case. So, it does feel a little to me, but he knows what he's doing, so it's not a bad team stretch.
I have no problems with anything on this team. I just think that Gustav Nyquist is undraftable.
I don't think that's the case, and it's just a handedness thing. And it also hard. It's the reason why I don't understand the Stamkos, Marchessault signings in the first place. Nyquist is the lefty shot that can set up, the Yossi, the Forsberg, and it just doesn't work otherwise, or it's awkward otherwise, especially for a non-natural passer like Stamkos and Marchessault both are. So I think he's got at least a path, but yeah, he's old and he's not necessarily super relevant. So
or shoots or okay. Ace Elliott, I always call him, but I know it's AC Elliott. The Brady, Cale Makar, Demko, Pedersen start gets all of his colors, which I'm not against at all. If it works out that way, it works out that way, and it kind of did here. I have no problem with Cale Makar at 17, and getting that goalie was likely correct. And I know we're both really high on Pedersen, and as all of the centers dipped, it made sense to maybe grab one. Followed up with Svechnikov and Jarvis. Could correlate, honestly. We've seen it at times, and maybe that's where the power play goes. Stutzel, Batherson, so kind of all in on correlation with, 2 Carolina, 3 Ottawa could all be correlated. Again, a lot of correlation there. Joseph Wool, Matheson, Arison, Hannafin, Cooley. I mean, I've taken a lot of Cooley lately. All of it with the last round, that's gone, I guess. As I think other people had the same realization of like who's the number one center in Utah. This team could be average to good. And Logan Cooley is a profile of a guy that could be very useful. Stone, Drouin, and then Krause to go with Cooley potentially, or just again, whatever. The guy has scored goals at the NHL level for a long time and does other things. I don't really see anything where I question much other than just maybe a little bit early on Cooley, like I said, especially when there was still Elias Lindholm and Rupe Hintz and Mark Scheifele on the board. It kind of seems like a little bit of a stretch. But other than that, everything I like.
Yeah, it feels a little light on wings. You need Carolina to be, God, maybe the second, third highest scoring team in the league to really make this wing room work. But yeah, that's about it. I don't know. Or Brady Tkachuk just scores every single week and is the fantasy number 2, and like, yeah, that would also work.
Ralph, welcome back to the Best Puck Streets on Underdog, as he was in Michigan, which is back in the player pool for playing on Underdog. If Matt, if you weren't aware, I think you probably were, but this year they're back. So Ralph,
Yes.
I guarantee he was sitting there just throwing things at the wall, and Makar went one before him, because I do love the Mikko Kel Makar start. Like if Mikko was getting you where he needs to get you, which he can do, I think Makar could be very involved because the power play is going to be very lethal and running to Mikko to shoot. So I do love that correlation, but goes Yossi instead. Maybe that doesn't happen all that often. But the Forsberg draft are taking a lot of Yossi. Bratt, Timo, Point, Binnington. This is something where I kind of want to pause on, because I feel like I just haven't taken any Jesper Bratt yet. A guy I was really high on last year, and taking him with Timo, I don't know if it's inherently wrong, because I don't know if we know what New Jersey's going to do, but it does kind of feel like it's, how many guys could eat in that kitchen on the first power play. And can Bratt and Timo both get there together? But I don't know. It could be fine. Any thoughts there?
I think they can definitely get there together. The Dawson Mercer hype train certainly screeched to a halt last year. I don't think he's necessarily dead per se, but like, Andre Palat's another year removed from being particularly fearsome. I don't think Mercer's there. So yeah, you're saying, Nico and Jack Hughes obviously locks on the top unit. They're whoever defense. And I think Bratt and Timo both fill out that power play. So I don't have an issue with either. Bratt is probably too reliant on Jack Hughes for me to take him in the third round. Like if Bratt's playing with Nico Hischier, I would need to see what his historical production has been, as when those two are paired together. But I imagine it's a fair bit worse than I would hope for out of a third round pick. But yeah, I mean, people are going to burn down my house if I say Jesper Bratt is not very good. He is very good. I'm just not sure. He feels like Panarin from last year. And like, he has Panarin last year in his range of outcomes, but that's his absolute peak ceiling. And that moves him up, a round and a half next year. It's not like he has the potential to go, 5th or 6th overall.
Okay, I think that's fair. Anyways, Braden Point, Binnington, Hagel, which honestly is a weird correlation, but I think we both are high on Hagel. I'm high on Busnevich. I'm very low on Cam Talbot, to be honest. I don't believe in the 37-year-old goalie with like 5 guys in Detroit that all feel to me like they're at least of somewhat of an NHL quality. But we can get into that conversation maybe in the next lobby. Nico Hischier to go, what?
There won't be a next lobby.
Oh, it's going to fill. I'm not worried. Nico Hischier to go in all together with that big New Jersey bet. Robert Thomas to go with Busnevich. I kind of like that, honestly. Zetterlund, a little bit early for my liking, with some other guys on the board, but not crazy, honestly. Wing's gotten a lot tougher, and Zetterlund does at least have more players to play with, and definitely a good rates and volumes, but I just feel like, honestly, it might just be where he ends up. Now that I think about it, looking at this, I'm like, wait, who else was going to go after him?
I'm just going to say you're not winning shit with Cam Talbot and Jordan Binnington as your 2 goalies this year.
Okay. Welcome back to Toronto. That seems a little tough to me too. I just don't really get why you take Nugent Hopkins like in that mix. I feel like you already had you made a pretty big bet on center there. Just get a goalie. I don't even care who at that point. Just get someone. I don't know. Terry, Hughes, Nurse again. So Yossi, I guess whatever. You waited a long time and bought on floor and ceiling and to kind of supplement one of the best defensemen in the league. But alas, only 3 more now for the lobby. So jump in. There's 11 in here. Smash that like button too, and we're gonna catch Mr. Feet.
Yeah, so I will say the goalies thing. The something that was sort of weird in my manifesto article that I just published today and that we've talked about a few times, is that when you sort of look at regular season and playoff performance, you see a very different like flip flop between wing and center. Whereas wings advanced highly last year when you invested in them, but once you got to the playoffs, it was the high tier centers that really took over and elevated your expected value. When you talk about goalies in the same light, if you invested low in goalies, this two goalies in the mid rounds is certainly a fifth bucket, a bottom 20 percentile type team. They advanced terribly. They advanced 12% versus 18% for all other types of builds. Goalie wise, the other 4 buckets. They also sucked in the playoffs. Those bottom tier bucket goalie builds, and it just makes sense. You're not going to get enough starts. So I really think that's a huge flaw in this team. And whatever good you do otherwise, it just gets completely submarined because you're giving up so many points on a weekly basis, and also just your ceiling is so reduced because you are never getting that 50-point goalie week.
We only need one more, by the way, if you want to be the last person in. All agreed. Yes. We're halfway there. Okay. Let's keep talking while we wait for that one more. The next team, I did notice as it was going along that it was a little bit funny, but also really good. Kaprizov, Robertson, Cole Caulfield, awesome. Love all of it. Swayman and Olmark, I thought that was a little bit funny to get both of them. I don't know if I've seen that yet. I'm sure it's going to happen where ADPs are kind of landing. Slavkovsky continues to go earlier and earlier and earlier and earlier, and I keep thinking it couldn't possibly rise higher. But I get it. I mean, it's a prospect, power forward, definitely has upside, but does seem a little bit early. But again, wing is getting tougher and tougher. I'm not really sure how many guys are left that I like less than Slavkovsky. Eric Sinek to go with Kaprizov makes sense. Going now finally where I kind of thought he'd end up going in the long run. Erik Karlsson, already said I'm really high on him. Wyatt Johnston to go with Robertson. I mean, who knows what they're going to do next year exactly. Montembeault to finish off goalie. I like finishing up goalie the way they did. Another good buy. Sharangovich, I'm incredibly high on. He's one of my higher drafted players. Cutter, Thomas Harley, another one that my highest drafted players. Raquel, Doughty, Leo Carlson. Raquel's a guy that I've been kind of hammering late in drafts. The easy 16 Raquel is probably going to be gone at some point as like they're the power play spot open. Michael Bunting is probably the other name in that mix in Pittsburgh that I think is draftable as well. Any thoughts here?
GA don't draft a Minnesota Wild player challenge. Fail yet again. Pretty sure every draft I've seen on your streams, he always grabs a Wild guy.
He's a Wild fan, and he's in here right now with his Wild
You don't
logos.
say.
I think he likes the Minnesota Wild. I do say it, and I will say it again.
Jesus Christ.
Turbo Time is next. Definitely enjoyed a new, I think, best puck aficionado. Aficionado is the right word? I think so, yeah. Because they've been on Twitter and everything like, this is great. That's the right word. Kucherov, Reinhardt. I mean, I like Reinhardt a lot. I mean, call me crazy. I kind of just continued to see him going at 20. Like, I want your take on Sam Reinhart and where he's going and where he should go. I understand the goals might not come like they did last year, but like, I just don't really see too much of a downside on taking Sam Reinhart comparatively to a lot of other guys. Like, the case you're going to make is, again, he's not going to score 50 goals. Could he still not reach value or be very instrumental in a winning team at pick 20 to 24?
Gosh. The only way that happens is if they go back to that Lundell, Lusterine, and Reinhardt line. I don't think that's... I mean, I guess that happens some of the time in, the theoretical next season. But, yeah, like, that would basically require, I think, Verhage, Kachuk, Rodriguez, and someone else to be, your top 6 wingers. I feel like that's just not happening. So yeah, I think Reinhardt's pretty locked into the wing with Barkov, and in that case, he's very much so in play in this range. Is again, it's sort of the thing is he really going to outscore a guy like Kucherov or Pastrnak? I don't think so. Obviously you don't need that to happen, but when you're talking like guys who go this early, I would not be surprised if Jason Robertson, outscored Pasta or Kucherov in fully healthy seasons, because we know that sort of talent is there. Obviously that's not true for Sam Reinhart. I don't think maybe he did beat one of them last year. I don't think so. But it's fine. It's certainly one of those necessary evils, I think, just given and that's the sort of reason I really like Ovechkin, is that I think that what Reinhart did last year is basically what Ovechkin did for 40 straight years, where he just shot all the time and scored, and just like, okay, wow, yeah, that works.
Reinhart beat Kaprizov. He did not beat, obviously not Pasta or Kucherov, or not even the Chuck, not Forsberg. Yeah. In total scoring. That's what happens. You score 50. Again, the range of outcomes is he could definitely be a top 10 player, but I think it's much less likely than anyone going, or a top round player, but I think it's much less likely than a bunch of guys that could go before him. But I do think he's going to be with, that top power play spot, which no one can find a way to stop because of just how good everyone around him is. I think he's justifiable. Anyways, it was Kucherov, Reinhart, Bedard, Bobrovsky, Kyrou, Besser, Hamilton, Jari, Dylan Gunther. I know you hate that guy, but I actually think he's a good player. Nikolai Ehlers, John Carlson, Brock Nelson, Gustav Forsling, Lauren Brossoit, Teravainen, and Pinto. Let's talk about
how high would you take Dylan Gunther? Because I feel like I'm almost there. Which I love the player, but
these people are sick. I don't know what else to say. And I could not be higher on Dylan Gunther as a player. I mentioned it again, the first or second stream where I'm sitting there watching What Chaos, which I wouldn't say is a show to watch if you want a lot of good fantasy and insightful hockey stuff, but a very entertaining show. And they're going all about Utah, how good Utah could be. They mentioned 8 guys, and not one of them was Dylan Gunther. And I am betting, if I can find it, Dylan Gunther, number 1 in goals in Utah. For sure. I think that is so in the range of outcomes. I think it could correlate with anyone and make everyone better around him. I still struggle to find myself taking him in the top 100, and taking him at 101 just feels like you're absolutely projecting a little bit more than we've seen by a substantial margin, but wing is getting tougher and tougher and tougher. So I don't know if it's wrong as much as we may have started to jump the shark a bit.
Nick Schmaltz did not go in this draft whatsoever, and Dylan Gunther went 101.
Yeah. Schmaltz,
Nick Schmaltz is a wing. Yeah.
He's a wing, right? He's a guy at the end of the draft as well that is draftable. You think about Utah, honestly,
yes.
Utah, for everything they've done this offseason, I definitely think is going to be competitive enough. But I think they're going to find goals. You know what I mean? This isn't, a team that's going to struggle to score. They might give up some against, unless if their goaltending is incredibly good, which, again, I just find it hard to believe we're going to see a resurgence of Connor Ingram at his age, but, we'll see. What I keep wondering is, where, how many players are draftable on offense? Because right now it's Keller, Gunther, Cooley 100% of the time. And then you have, I definitely take Schmaltz over Krause.
Okay.
Schmaltz is draftable, I guess is the way to put it.
How, in your mind, does Logan Cooley compare to Matty Beniers? Just as far as fantasy reliability, upside, team role, because I don't think Logan Cooley is all that different. And I guess I don't know that Beniers goes. Yeah, Beniers doesn't go in every draft. So I think I like Beniers more, and I don't like Beniers much at all.
I guess
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Cooley's more dynamic.
Maybe I have to look
sure.
into this. Yeah, maybe I have to look into this more. I just remember he was a shooter in college a bit more than I thought. And when he came in, it kind of felt like that could trend better than maybe Beniers did. That's really the question mark on him that I think I need to solve for a little bit more. But I mean, again, I think he is a totally okay last round pick in Logan Cooley to bet on a guy with that kind of talent, to bet on the skill, which we've seen for sure. And a guy that could find his way into playing with Clayton Keller, 5-on-5 on the top power play if Barrett Hayton just can't do it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think there's an easy reason to buy on him in general comparatively to Matt Beniers, which again, I think honestly you could buy on. Like center is deep enough to where, again, I mean, the only center I truly wouldn't have taken in this draft is Marco Rossi. Everyone else I think is draftable for different reasons. And I would put Beniers in that category as well as draftable. I think the upside of Cooley is interesting.
Looking at so Cooley was the number 3 pick in 2022. Beniers was the number 2 pick in 2021. They both played in the NCAA the year after being drafted, so they're between age 19, I guess, seasons. Maybe age 18. I'm not sure if I fixed the age issue that I found on this pick 224 stuff, or if I said I would wait. Whatever, doesn't matter. But when you basically compare their final seasons, which are the same age, whatever, Cooley does have a slightly better shot rate. So that's probably meeting what you were envisioning.
Yeah.
Beniers is also a half year older, so maybe there is a bit more to Logan Cooley. I just feel like Nick Schmaltz can take draws, and so if it's Schmaltz, Keller, Gunther, insert power play defenseman, I'm unconvinced that Barrett Hayton has lost the net front power play job on the first unit. And so, if you're going to tell me Cooley takes Schmaltz's role, then fine. I guess I get it. But, if Schmaltz is there, I think he'll be on the top unit. And so I'm a little worried about Cooley's role.
It'll be interesting to see. So, yeah, we've really sped through these teams. Just absolutely flying. But no, Turbo Time. I know that's not your name, Turbotron, but
didn't we already do this
Turbo Time because of it. Yeah, no, I was gonna say good team. I don't really have any big takeaways. That was it. I was just saying we never really said anything good about your team or bad about your team. We're just is Dylan Gunther going too early? Maybe not. I don't know, but the team's fine. No real issues here. Okay, I like Shane Pinto. I know Matt's a coward, but I actually like Shane Pinto.
I mean,
right there.
I would like him more if he told me that he was, giving out the goods in the betting circles.
Okay, well, he might if you ask nicely. Stock, that's Noah, Pasternak, Hellebuck, Stamkos. Yeah, we already went over Stamkos, but I think 28's about right. I know you might disagree with that, but I think that, yeah, whatever. You could take him around the 28 to 30, whatever range, and that's pretty good. I've taken him earlier than 28, I'm sure, because I'm a coward. And when I see ADP slipping, I'm a coward. So, yeah, Pasternak, Hellebuck, Stamkos, Crosby, JT Miller going 20 picks after ADP in this one. So I guess you bet on center early. Hedman, Vetrano, we already went over. Fox, Rust, Trevor Moore. It does kind of feel like this winger group is going to really rely on Pasternak, and then a bunch of guys that just the role is a little tough to see being incredibly big. I'm a never Zibanejad guy. 124 is maybe where it starts to get to the right range where you can consider him because you still make Zibanejad at the end of the day, but whatever. You went Hellebuck early, so you finish it off with DeCord and Gibson. Again, I'm pretty out on Gibson, but I guess in the same vein of why I think Dostal could get there, Gibson can as well. He would not be traded to a team because that team had a great goalie that was doing fantastic. To be traded to a team because they need him. So I don't have a problem with taking him, but it just feels to me like a guy that I'm betting on only for late season. So I'm just not taking him in a draft where I've had only DeCord as my number 2. But again, I think it's fine. Palmieri, Seth Jones, and Jamie Benn. So a lot of value on this team, but I just think the wing is a little bit too weak. Overall, it's still good though.
Yeah, I think that this team would have been far better off turning Hedman into a wing. I don't feel great about Vetrano Stamkos filling a second slot. And I also have a problem taking Victor Hedman on this team in particular because by taking Pastrnak at 4, you're basically betting. You're not outright betting against Kucherov. Obviously, they both can get there. But it is a very interesting situation where Hedman is in a situation where we have seen him in this exact situation for several years. I mean, there is nothing new beyond the fact that Steven Stamkos is gone, which arguably I think it makes Hedman's ceiling much worse because, a lot of Hedman's assists were, okay, I give the puck to Kucherov who passes it to Stamkos or Point, easy goal. Obviously points still exist. Or I take the puck, I give Stamkos score, I get point. Hedman's not getting there through blocks, through shots, through hits. He's not really that type of guy who's going to win you fantasy leagues with that. And so taking him on a team where you've sort of made your bed with David Pastrnak doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Just one of those minor things that I think is, it's at least something that I'm thinking about. It's probably not that impactful in the long term. But like pairing Hedman with Kucherov teams, I think makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's no Sergachev to take the power play role. I'm not really saying that the ADP value is all that awry or anything. I think I like Adam Fox more straight up. I think I like Mackenzie Weegar and Dobson and Quinn Hughes more straight up. But like, it's not like Victor Hedman is going to have these insane blocks plus shots type floors. Like you're betting on a ceiling outcome, and that ceiling comes through Nikita Kucherov, who you've basically taken David Pastrnak straight up over. And, whatever. Just something I'm thinking about. Final 3 drafts before we get into this one. I drafted perfect, DJ drafted perfect, and Wookie took Gabe Vilardi, which we talked, I think, about 30 minutes about. So anything else you want to say?
No, I think I had a point that I wanted to make about someone that I drafted, and I was going to get back to, but who really cares? Yeah, they're perfect, and we're up. I'm gonna guess. I haven't looked yet. I'm gonna guess I'm picking third. That's my guess. Second. Boom. These are my first 2 drafts, I believe, picking in the top 2. Again, I said that, but I will double check. I may have picked second one time. Okay.
Okay, so DJ, here's something. You mentioned on the phone earlier, and I said, let's save it. Wookie took Dylan Strome as his third center.
Yeah,
does that ring a bell?
That is funny. I was just going through centers, and just thinking like, who do I like the most? This, that, and the other thing, and oh crap, I hate this. I kind of hate picking second. I'd rather pick third. Do I take McKinnon or do I take Matthews? I'm going to take McKinnon, just to spite Matt. Okay. I like Matthews more, too. I want to spread the wealth. I think it's going to be harder to get McKinnon at 3 than it is to get Matthews at 3. So I'm going to give myself more bolus to spread the exposure later on.
This is what true cowardice looks like, my friends.
We'll discuss. Okay, but
he finally gets a number 2. And he's like, I'm going to take a guy I like less. Genius, brilliant. This is your best ball king, folks. This is your king. Come on. Subscribe to me. Moods.beehive.com.
Let's get back to first up Dylan Strome, and then we'll get back to this point myself. Okay, so Strome is draftable. Okay, that's all I really have. Anything from you?
I'm still reeling. Dylan Strome was so the Washington power play was excellent last year. And maybe it was running a little hot, but we've seen this team, I don't know if Shane Carberry is in the Spencer Carberry, I don't know, whoever. I don't know that he's necessarily in the, the genius mold of, NHL coaches or anything like that. But we've seen this power play for years be highly efficient and not have a ton of finishing talent outside of, of course, Ovechkin. John Carlson's very good. Dylan Strome as their left-handed shot basically took over everything last year on the power play because Ovechkin's not creating offense. Carlson's a bit long in the tooth. He's a right-handed shot. He's not really doing much. Dylan Strome is going to be instrumental to a power play that is pretty good on a team that was a playoff team last year. I feel pretty strong. I feel pretty good about Dylan Strome. The only downside, I think, is that Pierre-Luc Dubois is the Pierre-Luc Dubois that has been promised for so long. But I don't think that's overly likely. So yeah, I found that pretty a pretty interesting take by you. It's like, oh, like should we be thinking about him? Because I think the answer is yes, and I really do like that pick late in draft.
Well, I have not seen him picked, and I was sitting there, and it was just one of the drafts I did where I had 3 centers maybe a little bit earlier than normal, and I was like, well, let me just look through these guys. I haven't seen him drafted once, and now it seems like he's kind of getting a little bit. But so no, I think this is a perfect encapsulation of where we differ on a lot of our drafting in general, is because there are drafters that are very, very cautious on overexposing themselves to different players for whatever reason it may be. I'm not cautious about that at all, other than maybe my first round, because I think every single guy in the first round has, an incredibly, even Draisaitl. I'll even loop Draisaitl in because we have seen Draisaitl do it. Has number 1 player potential, and maybe not on the season for some versus others, but definitely in a final, definitely in a 2-week window. Every one of these players, maybe even Draisaitl, has that upside to win you the tournament. I don't want a situation where I have 2% McKinnon and 40% Matthews, or anything like that. If that could happen, now
I did that last year.
Right,
worked out okay for me.
It can. I mean, it certainly can. I don't see a scenario where that is the only way, or maybe even the best way to play best ball in general, just as a general rule of thumb. It's how I draft in every sport, really, across the board. And I've been successful in every sport, but probably, I guess, NFL, because it's a lot harder, obviously, but alas. So yeah, I would like to have more Matthews than McKinnon, not by much. We are talking about Nathan McKinnon coming off of one of the best years in NHL history, and clearly one of the best fantasy years in NHL history. And even though my issue with McKinnon is finishing, and Matthews does that better than probably anyone in the league, McKinnon had 50 and shot more than almost anyone. So I just don't really see why I'm going to not have exposure to him. And I think if you're saying that he is my number 3, you're not going to get very much. So I'd like them to, if everything went perfectly, I would have the exact same percent of all 3 of the top 3 centers. That would be my perfect world. I would like to try to do that. So what's the best way to do it? Well, one guy is 2.1 and one guy is 2.9. What are most people going to do?
I think in a sport like hockey, where we're dealing with relatively few advanced knowledge players, again, DJ, we are, I kind of wrote about this in the article, but just sort of going through the last few years of Best Puck, we are predominantly 2 of the best players in it's not even a question that people who listen to us will learn enough just based on getting tidbits of what we're talking about that they will be profitable themselves in the long run. It is, I guess the problem is that if it's such a if it's such a easy sport to win, why not take advantage of that by drafting players that we think are actually good at scoring goals? Because 69 is more than 50. And that's I think that sort of logic can lead you to the path of, well, if there's so many edges, why not eliminate the most obvious one and say, I have all these other edges. Let's not even care about how good the players are. And I kind of respect that. But also, this isn't going to exist forever. And so I kind of want to, get my money now. And so that's why I feel pretty strongly about, like, I spend all my time thinking about hockey. I know you do too. I want to
Yeah,
actually use that to sort of, pick apart these players, pick apart these decisions, and make the correct decision over and over and over again. And, sometimes it leads you to 20% of, insert idiot Taylor Hall or whoever that absolutely tanks some teams, but it will ultimately, I think, lead you to be more profitable. And more importantly, it'll lead you to a more short-term viability.
I just
It'll
I,
you get the
okay,
bag, I
but
guess.
the point, I make your picks first, and then I'll make my final point on this conversation because I feel like you're talking about two very different things in my head. So
Uh-oh. I lost Eichel. I couldn't find Eichel. I was going to take him. Okay.
okay, you got
I'll
Connor
take
Bedard at
Bedard, I
36.
guess.
Yeah. Oh no. What are you gonna do? No,
Um,
let me make my final point because again, talking about Taylor Hall and talking about Matthews and McKinnon, I think are just such different things that it's and I'll explain what I mean by that. And I don't mean it because I think Taylor Hall was stupid. I took a lot of them too. All right, so now that you've taken Bedard and Sorokin, my point is that when you're talking about one of the first round players, okay, and like I said, I obviously understand that many of them there is a pecking order. There is a pecking order, and there is a distinction potentially between some of these players smaller than others. Like I truly don't know how. Again, you could try your best to convince me that Matthews is unequivocally better in this exact scoring system than McKinnon, and I'd at least listen to you. But I would disagree that it's more than like what percent outcome do you give Matthews to outscore McKinnon? Like what percentage? Let's just do it. Give me an approximate. Like
so if you wanted,
considering health the same, no one missing a game.
so per game. So we could do this via a bet, like frame the bet and then we can lay odds on it. But I'm thinking like
I'm not
I
trying to
would
lay
take
odds. That's not the
I
point
would
I'm
take
making at
I
all.
would take Matthews up to maybe minus 150, which is what, 50, 58,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Right. Okay.
57%. Like,
Perfect. Perfect. On the whole season. Okay. Now, what about if I said in a 1 week or 2 week window? Does the percentage go up or down? That one's going to outscore the other, right? I mean, it seems like more variance is involved. How could you be more certain
mhm.
on a smaller window, right? So if we're already saying the window's not that big to begin with for on the season, but in that final, so I'm thinking that our edge is much bigger against the field over the course of 150 drafts in many capacities, to where I think I could get a McKinnon who could absolutely be the number one scorer, like he was last year in the finals, through more times than other people. I think I could get Matthews through more times than other people. I want to spread that exposure out for these players with that unbelievable upside. Because if I get a player into the finals that's much lower owned because of their advance rates not being as high, but I'm able to capitalize on a bunch of other picks that help carry those players through, that gives you an edge later on in the playoffs, which is something that I've constantly been kind of fighting for. And that's why I like to spread the exposures in every sport. I mean, I'm going to take Jesper Bratt here, right? I mean, Jesus Christ. At some point, I said I wasn't the highest on him in the world, but 47, I think we missed the point. But again, like as you get later in drafts, I think the distinction between certain players gets much bigger, where the bet is much easier to make versus player X and Y. We went through some examples of like I laid 70% odds on some guys versus others. Considering health to be the same. So yeah, I guess my point is that I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
really have
I
much else to say.
my preference is always to try and stack as many mini edges as I can and just say if I'm wrong, at least I was wrong on the things I believed in. And I understand playing so that you don't have to be right or wrong about these guys. Sure. Like I certainly won't tell you you're doing it wrong. But I do feel like in our limited, to pull a quote from our friend Devin Cooley, to pull, we only have so many trips around the sun. We only have so many best pucks to profit off of. And who knows, in 5 years, does underdog exist anymore? Is the NHL lobby as liquid as the NFL lobby? And not only is it as liquid, it's as sharp. And there's so many people dedicating time and are we really going to be in this era forever? And so I want to try and pull all the things, I want to pull all the dollars, all the cents out that I can, versus trying to make sure that I just make some amount of money this year.
Mhm.
But whatever. We can move on from that.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
several comments that I think are
yeah. No, I know I wasn't really paying a ton of attention to him, to be honest, and we're way behind now. But yeah, I guess that's my point of like I like them. I might like Matthews more in a vacuum, but I would love to have equal percentages. And if I get to a point where they're lopsided enough, then I'll just switch. And taking one second instead of the other. Like it doesn't matter to me that much. Yeah, Carlson Chikrin situation, I guess, is interesting, but yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going to be Carlson's power play as well until he falls off, entirely, and that just didn't happen last year. Um, and Chikrin will, find his way, but he didn't move for much. Matt, you're on the clock, so
I don't know what to do.
I think I know what you're going to do. Be a coward.
No, you
Yep,
don't. Oh,
the coward's way out. The Hughes Besser.
Yep.
We'll go team by team at the end, obviously. Yeah, so no Nertushkin with McKinnon. I don't know. I mean, I don't really care that much, I guess. Like, Nertushkin does shoot, and they didn't really always tether them together at 5-on-5, but I guess on the power play, maybe it makes a difference, but I don't know. I mean, I think that Colorado can put a lot of guys in a position to succeed because of the talent they have in, Rantanen, McKinnon, and Makar. And is Nertushkin entirely a product of that? No, I do think there's a clear amount of skill and that exists with him, but like this was a guy that was passed around for a while before he finally kind of got it all together. So I'm not that worried about it. Like Lekanen can do it.
Yeah, Nichushkin is. I mean, he's an incredible player.
Yeah.
It's not that what he does can't be reproduced. It's probably more just the impact on the rest of the team. The other thing that I don't know, like I'm not sure how much team level drawing penalties is a skill, but Colorado's been in the top 5 or so, I think each of the last 3 or 4 years. And Val Nichushkin is a huge driver of that. He draws a lot of penalties. He's very good defensively. I believe that means he doesn't take many. I'm trying to pull up his Hockey Viz page right now to confirm that. Yeah, he doesn't take many penalties either, so he's a pretty big boon in that regard as well. So that's a minor thing, if they get fewer power plays. But it really does is it elevates the Lekanins and Juens to these, actually top tier roles where if something were to happen to Mikko Rantanen, you're talking an absolute bonanza for, someone on that Colorado squad. And even then, they could both very well get there without an injury to one of those, to one of those big 2 forwards.
You know what? I'm considering doing something I haven't done here even close and just absolutely going bully defense for a change with OV, Bratt, Konechny, McKinnon kind of leading my and Hellebuck just actually leaning into one team with 2 elite defenders. I'm going to do it. I haven't done it yet, and I think it's probably bad overall as a strategy, but that's what slipped here. That's what kind of fell down the line in Dobson and Uyghur. So I'm going to build an actual bully defense team. Just because I feel like I have so much upside at every position already. What was next in the chat? Yeah, I mean, again, Reinhardt was incredibly impactful, and Wookie had a ton of them last year, but the finals don't always work in that favor, which does. I mean, that's kind of what happened to me. I think with Forsberg, Yossi is like they just didn't matter at all. Like they were so prevalent that like they didn't really get me anywhere. Like as they scored,
yeah,
they moved me up. Didn't matter. So like some of those, sometimes you can, again, it's not to say that I don't want to draft the guy I think is going to be fantastic because it's going to hurt me in the finals. That's not true either. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's an interesting debate.
Yeah. Nashville 2-man stacks. Nashville 2-man stacks. There were 256 of them. They advanced at a 46% clip into the playoffs. Unbelievable because, and most of those were obviously Forsberg, Yossi. There were some Ryan O'Reilly's with Forsberg or something, but just an absolute smash fest if you stacked those two. And yeah, as such, they don't really matter. Reinhardt was, I think, 100% drafted, even though he was going in, round 14, round 15. He was literally like either 99 or 100% drafted, despite never, crossing that like 120 ADP threshold. So he was a pretty big unlock key as well, or skeleton key.
You are up next.
So yeah, sometimes it just doesn't matter. Sometimes your players are too good, and that's why you build in multiple. That's also why you have multiple goalies, multiple whatever's. Is that they also allow you some uniqueness when it gets to the big money stages, which is another thing that we'll probably investigate a bit when it comes to my newsletter and such.
Yeah,
all right, we have another falling knife at defense. I will not be taking Adam Fox.
Fox Trocheck, it's right there for you though.
That it is.
Yeah, so your team so far, Nylander, Robertson, Bedard, Sorokin, and then you get the Besser, Quinn Hughes. You timed out and took Lucas Raymond, a guy, and Dylan Larkin. So you go with a different correlation in the Larkin Raymond. Didn't get the Brinkett, so I'm just a little bit surprised. Remember last year when we thought we were absolutely dead on that one bet? That was that Larkin, the Brinkett under that you talked me into it pretty easily, and I was like, that might be really, really sharp. But then, like 3 weeks in, we're like, well, that money's completely gone.
Yeah, it was. I think it was 29 DeBrincat goals, and he had like 10 in the first month. And I don't think he ever got hurt either, and he didn't even come close.
No, I remember thinking it was like he needs to get like 2 hat tricks, and I was like, he's not doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, this again, it's so funny because depending on when you draft and what the lobby looks like, and the lobbies we do on stream are just going to be different. You see a lot of these guys, their ADP might not move as much as you think watching our streams in the backwards direction, because you just do not get Connor Bedard at 36. You don't get Pedersen, at 48. People are jumping way up to grab a lot of these centers. So
yeah,
if I like that a lot. Like I tried to fit in, and I didn't mention this, but I started a new job at office, so it'd be a lot tougher for me to find these pockets of time. But just very different lobbies. Like Adam Fox finally goes off the board here at 93 with the Kreider drafter and Wookie. So I do like the different windows. My prayers were answered. I am not gonna even think twice. I'm just gonna take Jari here to go along with Hellebuck. I'm worried about Wing, but I can't miss out on I think what is really truly the last elite goaltender at 95. So I'm going to do it here. McCurds, who did take McDavid, does take Jeff Skinner to go along with it. We'll see what his last pick is, and then I will be. I really wanted Brian Rust. Gunther and Kane are the next 2 wingers. I don't think I could go any other position right now and feel good about it. Look, I feel like I gotta go wing. Screw it. I'm gonna take Patrick Kane. Actually, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna pick all the olds.
Yeah.
It's tough. I like Kane.
So I'm trying to think through Detroit last year, but wasn't the end of the season the nonsense about Alex DeBrincat not even being on their top power play?
Yeah.
And Derek Lalonde is a giant donkey who probably gets fired halfway through the season when this team is nowhere close to the playoff picture. But I don't really understand why Lucas Raymond goes after DeBrincat. That it feels to me like Raymond is I don't want to say like the safety blanket for Larkin, because it's very much the opposite. But Raymond and Larkin have a very strong chemistry, and when Lucas Raymond, who by my money is one of the worst defensive oriented prospects coming into the league is killing empty net situations alongside Dylan Larkin. That tells me that, you know, they have something there as far as chemistry is concerned that I don't think is easily getting interfered with. So I feel pretty good about Lucas Raymond being like the scorer on this Detroit team. Obviously, Patrick Kane gives you a second out as well. If the first line is like, you know, if the first line's Larkin, DeBrincat, Kane, fine, I'll take my L. But I don't feel like at this point in their careers you would do that to Dylan Larkin and say, hey, here's two anchors, you know, you and Mo Sider, figure it out. So I feel pretty strong that like Raymond's going to be pretty insulated. He's very much a one-trick pony. He can only score goals, but you know, I guess he does enough that you know, that he gets played with Dylan Larkin. So I'll happily take those two paired together, which seems to be pretty common based on.
I agree with everything you just said. No real problems with it. And again, the comment that comes after is about, you know, Gunther. It's like, I just still think Patrick Kane is probably, you know, a better fantasy asset even at this point in his career. And we saw it last year, and Gunther feels like a bit too much of a question mark to buy on. Like, what's the, you know, the bull case for either of them is, I don't think it's that much different where I couldn't have maybe bought on the prospect, but I mean, Patrick Kane was actually pretty freaking good last year when he was healthy in like many different ways. So I'm not too worried on it. Other than that, did we get another? Oh yeah, I mean, Peterka is also. I think the Peterka situation is getting a little bit like I don't even know how much of Peterka. I mean, he was like a last round pick to start, and I took him every time. 83. I've seen him go earlier than that.
You took him at 100 every time. Doesn't mean he was a last round pick.
I was taking him up through around, probably around. I don't even know if I took him at. I'd have to look. I'd have to look if I wouldn't have to go back too far probably to find my last Peterka team, but I mean, I think 110. You know, that range is fine, but around this range, I mean, like, why is he worse than Dylan Gunther? You know, but like, how much better is he? You know, is he than some of the guys he?
I feel like I feel like Peterka is markedly worse a bet than Dylan Gunther. There's less prospect pedigree. There's far less competition for Gunther in Arizona as far as the role that he's looking to fill.
I feel like the prospect pedigree thing is stupid.
We saw it. I would say we saw it for half a season with Gunther versus we've seen it for a full season with Peterka at 5-on-5. We've only seen it on the power play for like 2 weeks for Peterka. And that's pretty concerning with a new coaching staff coming in. Like, I don't feel like there's any certainty that Peterka is a top 6 forward for the Buffalo Sabres. I think it's very likely, but like, you know, if you told me that, oh, you're getting sniped.
I mean, Lekanen, what the hell? I was saving him.
That's pretty funny. But if you told me that Alex Tuch, Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, Jack Quinn all scored more fantasy points than JJ Peterka this year, I would not be surprised whatsoever. I think you could include Zach Benson into that mix, and I would not be super shocked. I would be somewhat surprised. Versus, I think if you told me that anyone besides Clayton Keller outscored Dylan Gunther, maybe plus like 1 or maybe 2 others, I would be very surprised. So like you're talking to me like Gunther's locked in top 3, and in my mind, he's not locked in top 5 for the Sabres and Peterka.
I will get my first Michkov at 122 to go with Konechny. I don't know if it obviously could very easily not happen, but maybe they do try to put him with some high skill to start it off, and that's kind of how he gets there. So if I'm going to bet on him, I think it's with Konechny makes sense to say that, like, his role is not being diminished, and they're going to put him out there with, again, a guy that I said is incredibly good defensively, but really good everywhere. And certainly boost the guys around him. And we saw that with Tippett. We saw that with a number of guys. And Tippett, the worry is that, like, he could fall out of favor a bit. Like, that's why I just don't think Travis Konechny has any risk of falling out of favor in Philly with the way he plays, while Tippett fell out of favor last year, and they have a guy that could easily replace him. Not entirely, because, replacing scoring is tough. Like, he'll still be used and still fantasy relevant for sure. And I don't think he's going to be replaced. That's a bad way to put it, maybe. But, like, he could be off of the power play in line with Konechny, which happened a lot last year, and that's mainly because Torch is a donkey. But that's, again, him being a donkey, and you can yell at your screen, you can yell at your, your perfect team all you want, but like his donkeyness is still his donkeyness, and it's still going to happen. And who is he going to do it to?
I never want to hear you say the word donkey again.
Why not?
You just said it like 7 times in the same sentence, so I just
I was looking in the mirror.
My dream is Frost with Tippett and Michkov, for what it's worth. Like the Frost and Tippett pairing was really, really good last year. Torts played really, really hard to get on Morgan Frost and seemed to get a lot out of him. When they were on the ice, they were dominant. They were territorially dominant. They scored a ton. And so I think Frost and Tippett stay together, and Michkov, I think, fits very well with that as your phenomenal top line. But let's see. I think
Peterka at 105 is the highest I've taken him. Looking through a couple games.
I am running out of time here. What the
3.
hell happened to the wing position? All right, I am panic picking Jake Sanderson because I'm not taking Brock Faber. I guess I'm going down the board to get Cutter Gauthier because
wing died.
Don't want any of these wings. So
yeah, I guess this is just one of those drafts that I'd hoped that going with other positions and trying to get a little bit of everything, because I felt pretty good about the OV Brat Konechny start. I guess that was leading me to people will not be taking wingers later. But I've spread the wealth in this one pretty good. We'll see if that pans out. We'll go over our teams, but I'll read off Matt's quickly just because he just picked his 2. But yeah, so going, I guess, I'll go positionally. That might make a little bit more sense to people listening on the audio. Bedard and Larkin at center right now. Winger, Nylander, Robertson, Besser, Lucas Raymond automatically switch back to me. Please don't do that. Cutter Gauthier, Luke, Quinn Hughes and Jake Sanderson, and then finished up goalie early with Sorokin, Kemper, and Montembeault. Not really that early, but finished up goalie already. So a 2-5-2-3. I think that was probably necessary to get goalie done. I do kind of want to maybe mention Sorokin for a second, because like I'm still pretty high on him, and people are like, oh well, who do they go to in the playoffs and this and that and the other thing, but like. Is that feeding into anything for you, or are you on kind of my side of like this is still Leo Sorokin and maybe there was something else going on?
Yeah, I think Patrick was just a silly goose. I mean, they played half the season with Brock Nelson, Bo Horvat, and Matt Barzal as their top line. Like, I mean, this dude is just he's Patrick Waugh. I mean, who's going to tell him no? Certainly not Lou Lamoriello. So I don't know that you can totally rely on Ilya Sorokin, but Varlamov is that he's now another year older. Sorokin is clearly one of the best goalies in the NHL. So I will happily take him in that range of goalies, I guess. And the other 2 picks were not necessarily anything, but I was looking at the board. I didn't really want a defenseman there. And those are my 2 kind of final tier goalies that basically like every other goalie after that, I'm pretty uncomfortable with. And I'm very comfortable with Darcy Kemper and Sam Montembeault as far as their combination of role and the teams they play behind, particularly for Kemper. I think people are way too low on the LA Kings, way overreacting to the fact that they get catapulted out of the first round by Edmonton every year. I don't necessarily think that's emblematic of any particular issues on their roster. And I think that Kemper's going to start, I think he's going to start 55 games for them. I would be kind of surprised if he wasn't their firm number 1.
God, but I mean, I feel like I'm leaning into the dusty old guy bit too much by taking Claude Giroux, but there is just no one left. God. So my team after my last 2 picks, McKinnon and Nico Hischier. Alex Ovechkin, Jesper Bratt to go with Nico Hischier, Travis Konechny, Patrick Kane, Mitch Goff, I already mentioned, we kind of went over. Claude Giroux, defense, Noah Dobson, Mackenzie Weegar, and goaltenders. I did finish off, didn't mention it yet, but Connor Hellebuck, Tristan Jarry, and I grabbed Joey Decord. I don't love Decord. I think that's my first time getting him, but goalie is really, really not looking good, and Grubauer just might be bad. Decord took over the net pretty thoroughly, and I just think that there's at least some level of upside there. So Schmaltz goes 150 in this lobby to GA, so not getting past anyone this time.
I got him thinking. I got GA thinking.
Matt, you have a 2-5-2-3. You're almost up again. For your back-to-back. What are you thinking here? Finish up center and defense?
Let's see. I have not thought anything about. Well, I will
give away your pick.
I will be taking Tyler Bertuzzi to go with my Connor Bedard, the little safety blanket. And then I pretty much have an open board. So.
Oh, come on, AC Elliott, do it.
I think.
Be funny. Ruin Matt's day. Ruin it. You can ruin it.
I mean, if he ruins
5,
literally
4.
You would not see my face move an iota if that were to be. Oh well, I was going to take Hinson Bertuzzi, so I guess my face moved a little bit because that's not who I was expecting to get sniped on.
Not
the Hintz disrespect is kind of extreme.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Versus.
It's just the Wyatt Johnston love, I think, that is getting in the way of but yeah, I mean, Rupe Hintz last year was, I think we just forget maybe what he was. He's not even that old, is he?
Oh, why am I frozen? Yeah, okay, I'll take Tomas Hertl.
Undrafted last time.
Yeah, so on the board at center, Robert Thomas, Brock Nelson, RNH, Cousins, Celebrini, Malkin, Cooley, Bennett, Kopitar. I have 2. I think in both the drafts I've taken Malkin that I've done so far. I don't want to have 50% Malkin or whatever. So I think Hertl has a very good chance of winning the cycle. As of right now, it doesn't seem like they're trading William Karlsson. So Hertl could very well play the wing, even with Chandler Stevenson moving on. So I think Hertl could be in the top 6 alongside Eichel. I think he's almost a certain to be on the power play. Marchessault's gone. I think Eichel, Stone, defenseman. I think Hertl is easily at the top of the rest. So I like Hertl a lot there as a bet on. It's a bet on Jack Eichel more than it is a bet on Tomas Hertl, but just also a team that they're just a really good team, very much like LA. I think that these two teams are very, very good. They might not have a singular superstar, but I think they'll have multiple productive players, and it doesn't seem like these guys go all too early.
I guess I just at what point is Robert Thomas not better than Hertl though? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get the rates are bad, but were they that bad last year? And this kind of feels like a guy that you could bet on shooting more.
I mean, I think Thomas is a better player, but I guess I'm not sure what I'm losing out on in terms of week to week upside.
How many points do you want to talk about? I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. I don't really see why it's again, but the point I guess I was getting to is one guy I think has more of a potential to shoot a lot, and the other guy I don't really think is going to get there anytime soon. And Hertl, all of a sudden he's going to start. Hold on, let me just make my pick.
No, I'm thinking. I mean, I guess Hertl is an irrelevant data point because he didn't really. He doesn't have the same role last year. But I'm just looking for. I guess if Mano's in the chat still, he might have the cool layout he has of the players. but I'm just trying to find where I grabbed my player level data by week and to see what sort of distribution we're talking about. Because I just don't think Robert Thomas has any sort of can't miss upside to him. I think he creates very good fantasy. Like, I think he's very similar to Alex Markov, where like you're never going to catch me feeling disappointed that I missed out on Alex Markov. Like, yeah, he's going to create a lot more fantasy players than he will, actually create fantasy weeks himself. So, or I guess take them for himself.
Yeah. So my back-to-back, by the way, I went Cousins and Duran. I kind of was hoping that Quinn would get there. He did not. But with McKinnon, I mean, I think it makes a ton of sense. And you could convince yourself of a lot of different power play situations of, middle stats and whatnot. But Jonathan Duran did actually hold on to just playing with McKinnon for pretty much all of the season at 5-on-5 and did get a ton of power play run and honestly shot a bit more than maybe you'd think at times. This isn't great, but you don't have to be the best player in the world to play well with Nathan McKinnon. And there as a guy that almost had 20 goals and what doesn't feel like I mean, how many games did he? How many games did he play? Did he play anywhere near 82?
Who's that?
Well, Duran played pretty close to 82. I was gonna say I don't think he played every game, but I just don't think he played every game with McKinnon to start, and then that kind of clicked. I don't know. There was a stretch in there where it was like, holy crap, this might be for real. This guy. I just think it's worth a bet as your last winger in to go with McKinnon to say like he could score for you a couple times.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that.
I'm taking dusty players that are dusty, and Jonathan Duran never dusty.
Third D is it's interesting.
We're both going to be in that. We're both going to be in that boat here, but I have Dobson and Uyghur, so I don't feel terrible.
Is my shit just okay? Yeah, my thing is just freezing for some reason. Let's see. So I'll take Zellweger. Defense. I think I want to take Vince Dunn there, but because I already have Cutter, I don't think I have that twosome. I think that's more fun for the stream. And then wing.
Take call.
Okay, I just start a guy that I think I kind of like. Eli Tolvanen, come on down.
Yeah, I mean, I talked a lot about Seattle, and I guess you were in Europe, so you didn't really get a chance to talk on them. But we did a little bit, I guess, actually mention, the potential for this team to score more goals, just in general, as an entire, outlook on this team. They could score more goals next year. I've been betting on McCann and Bjorkstrand a bit. Tolvanen is in the mix and definitely had usable weeks last year. Is there anyone else that you'd consider on this team, or is it just like maybe we're undervaluing? Because again, there's one forward being drafted in every draft right now. One.
So I mean, the player that I think I'm highest on relative to the market is probably Shane Wright. Like, yeah. But you can't take him in. You can't take him in best puck until we see it in training camp that he's like actually running it. That he's centering a top line. I doubt that happens. But I think Shane Wright has a lot going for him, namely, obviously, the prospect pedigree. I think once he makes it to the NHL, he'll be a very fantasy relevant player. Like when you're talking about shot rates and whatever in terms of predictiveness of future shot rates, his junior's impact was like larger than that of Slavkovsky. Of course, comparing OHL to the professional Czech league, wherever Slavkovsky came from, comparing those stats is not necessarily going to be apples to apples. Even the best you try and account for the age, just because there's so few players like Slavkovsky coming and going. But like Shane Wright did profile very well in that regard, as far as having an elite shot, the propensity to use it. And he has multiple years now under Dan Bylsma in the AHL. And so I think that's at least something. It's going to be tough to unseat Matty Beniers and Chandler Stevenson, given the contracts that they both now have. but I think Shane Wright's just a straight up better player than both of them. So we'll see, but yeah, Yuli Tolvanen is maybe the guy. Largely, I think that's because we haven't seen, I guess, Jared McCann used on that one-timer side. Who knows if that's because Hackstall's just we know Hackstall's an idiot. So like it's very possible that Jared McCann goes to that wing on the power play and is like, sure, like I can score from here too. But I think Tolvanen is the one-timer guy on the left side. And so I think that keeps his power play role pretty healthy, unless they put Chandler there, which obviously would be a huge mistake. Matty Beniers shouldn't be that guy. And then everyone else is a right shot with Bjorkstrand, Eberle, Shane Wright, So I think Tolvanen is their left or the right flank power play one guy, regardless of whether it's Montour or Vince Dunn on the point there.
Okay, let's get to the two questions and let's get through these teams because I do want to shut it down here pretty soon. It's already 11:15, and I have stuff to do.
We certainly don't have to. We don't have to review every team either, but
yeah, I actually, I meant to mention the Faber thing. This question came up, and Brock Faber, who you passed on, and took Jake Sanderson. That's kind of when it came up. He went 136. So I kind of wanted your take on Brock Faber, and then maybe I'll give a little bit as well.
No interest.
Okay, fair enough. I think the problem with Faber is that I don't think he makes much of a positive impact on that power play. Like he's incredibly replaceable.
He's not even going to play on the power play. Jared Spurgeon.
That was where so Spurgeon being back, there's number one, but they actually just put Chisholm there instead.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Chisholm.
I guess that that's kind of the bigger point to me is it's no, I'm not I'm on your side. We're on the same team.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the board. I'm staring at the board. Like, what are we doing, people?
Yeah, they clearly were like, okay, you don't help our power play. We have to find someone else. Like Declan Chisholm's going to be there, and he was useful because he can move the puck well. And Brock Faber's a really good defenseman, but we don't win because we took good defensemen. Oh yeah, buoy him. Oh my god. And then other question was, about kind of structurally taking 8 wings because I took the 2D early. The consideration, I guess it just depends on kind of at the end of the draft there. I just felt like there was no winger that was going to add any value to my team. And I was really honestly debating taking Bowen Byram or maybe just taking another correlated defenseman, maybe even a Cam York or someone that the floor stats were a bit higher on, but decided to buy on Vince Dunn. Just like I said, I think this team scores more goals. And Vince Dunn was maybe a bit more of a, injuries plus didn't really get a lot of support around him. I'm hopeful in this new sort of era in Seattle with a new coach that he still gets a big enough role and still is able to move the puck like he can. And maybe some of the burden comes off him with Montour, but it doesn't make him useless in fantasy. So still think he's draftable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I just realized that Brant Clark went with the last pick of the draft.
An interesting guy. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I think that there's more guys than you think. And again, Dylan Strome was an example today of a guy that I was like, why is this guy never getting drafted? It makes no sense. People are drafting players that are useless. It's Bowen Byram, not a good example, but there's other guys. I think if you go team by team, which I think is a really good exercise, to sort of just low to slow draft, go team by team, kind of look at ADPs and kind of think through is anyone missing kind of that isn't getting drafted. That again, like you said, there's only how many power play 1 roles that are useful even, right? But there's enough that are not being touched that have upside. And that's where you kind of find those gems.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I'm not going to say you can't do, a 4 centers or 2D or whatever, but I think you need to be really, really familiar with not only, the general range of ADP capital that you're investing in those 2 sums, as you would say, or if you're doing 4 centers, what position are you sacrificing? You need to be really familiar and really comfortable with what you're sacrificing for it, just because 3733 is just so safe. It's not like the NFL where like it's, oh well, you can do this many running backs and this many, like the scoring setup in that it's just 1-2-1-1 across the board with a flex makes it so that that balance build is very, very powerful, and very, very sensible. There's really no logical argument to deviate. So of course you can, and some of the work I'm going to do further into the summer is determining, what do these intelligent deviations look like. Um, I think one of the main takeaways in what DJ's showing here that I wrote, that I didn't really spell out in this article because frankly I don't have any evidence to support it yet, but we did see that the regular season advancement for investing in wing was so high, and then once you got to the playoffs, the center investment did the best. They won all the money basically. And I think part of that could just be the case that the teams that survived having relatively little wing investment did something else. They did something intelligently that I don't know what it is, whether it's, they drafted well, they got good value, they just picked the right teams, they stacked better. I don't know. But I do think that there's something to the respect of, yeah, 3733 is a good rule, and drafting a lot of wings is a good rule, but you don't have to do that. You just need to know that, there's always a trade off. And most people are just blindly taking centers because they score the most points. And so that's not, you're not gaining anything from that trade off besides saying, I'm gaining a bunch of points that I can't actually score on my roster. So that's a long way to say, like, it's fine, but make sure you're really, really comfortable with what a good 3733 build looks like before you start saying, I'm going to take 4 centers. Because a lot of people at the beginning of Best Puck said, I'm going to take 4 centers, 6 wings, 3-3. And multiple years now, it's been very lackluster relative to the 3733. And so that doesn't mean that they were wrong, but it means that there's certainly something that I think was being missed in that initial sense from the field to go 4-6-3-3 as a roster build, and to just be very careful when following that versus the more standard balance build.
I think honestly, like the you said it very elegantly, and I'm not even sure exactly how you said it, but like just being intentional with every pick is important. And I think that matters in every sport so much more than maybe we give it credit for. Like I mean, the perfect example is like in NFL might be like taking Baker Mayfield uncorrelated, and then like, well, now you have to take a Trey Palmer or something, right? Like, I guess then that Palmer pick makes sense. It wouldn't make sense without the Baker pick, the mistake before, but that wasn't an intentional pick. You see what I'm saying? So like, if you're drafting and you get in a vacuum like we're in here, where like winger is dying and you feel like there's absolutely no one that fits, and there's a center that like for whatever reason is making your team better, but what does that look like? And there's some centers that might fit that mold a bit better. Like Dylan Strome, when you already took Ovi, that seems more intentional to where like you're maximizing the potential upside in a finals type of a week. When if you don't have any other correlation than that, and again, I've talked a lot about how correlation can be a bit of a vicious cycle, but that feels like a better angle to take. Like why I jumped up and grabbed Jerem when I did. Like I think he's getting drafted in this entire draft because winger's dead. But I want to be intentional by getting that 7th winger, no matter what, with McKinnon, right? Like that makes it a lot easier to jump up in the final rounds. I mean, obviously ADP matters a lot less, as been proven by every sport. So just being intentional is incredibly important. But you're not on stream, like use the star method. That might mean to many of you to correlate. I don't think it means to correlate in NHL. Like you don't have to, but like definitely be queuing a number of guys you're comfortable with taking and having them ready to go, because you never know who's going to go before you. And when you're in a window like this and you queue up Gabriel Velarde because you think that's a great pick later on, well, they're going to go 105 because people know what they're doing in this, this draft, round correct, right? So yeah, just being intentional is important. So I don't know. I could have probably just left it at one line, but I explained it. Any thoughts on that in general?
I don't have anything to add. I think we can close up if you're ready to get out of here.
Yep. Every team, honestly, I don't think anyone went I just don't remember anyone doing anything stupid. Everyone kind of made sense. And again, like we see the Saros Bobrovsky 2 goalie team, like try that a couple times if you want. But again, like I think it was honestly really pretty sharp actually to just take 4 defensemen. Like again, like use that pick to your advantage when you need it. You know what I mean? So that was the one note I did kind of pick up on. I was like, man, this guy's still defensemanless. Like that, and then I actually ended up making a lot of sense. I don't really see anything else everything just made sense. I didn't see anything weird.
I'm a little skeptical because of the injury rates of goalies and just how much volatility there is in the position. Like the best, let's just say the 20th best center in the league is going to produce very, very highly for your team week in, week out. Maybe he doesn't hit the score sheet every week because, maybe you have the 19th best center or the first best center on that team. The 20th best goalie in the league, though, could very well be a Jack Campbell. And so that to me makes taking only 2 goalies a little bit more risky than taking 2 defensemen or even 2 centers. If you grab like a Matthews Patterson or something crazy like that. To the point where, again, I'm very, very strict about 3-7-3-3, not overthinking it and getting crazy elsewhere if I want to. But the 2 goalies is a little concerning to me just because we can't really predict how good the goalies will be. And a lot of coaching decisions are based on how well the players are performing. And so that's the main issue, even though both those guys should play a ton and they probably will play a ton. It just leaves yourself a little bit thin to like needing that specific outcome in order to make sure that team is viable come playoff time and that both goalies are starting and trading back and forth so that you can, rise to the top in the finals week without the 60% owned goalie that advanced everyone there.
It's going to pull up, because someone mentioned seeing a non-stream draft. And again, like I said, sometimes you get 3 or 4 badgeless bros and they do some funny stuff. So, yeah, I think, again, Demko going 9, Leon going 6, kind of afforded me a really interesting build where, again, I pissed absolute green, but look at that. Look at the value I got. Like, it's insane. Like, it just kept coming and coming and coming. Giggity. And yeah, so I don't know. Did I completely save it? Like, I don't know. Like, goalie got pretty weak, but I kind of felt like I got enough starts in there too. And then finished up center with the So again, like I am a huge advocate of draft with us because it's a ton of fun and you get some. I think the one main benefit of drafting with us is you will get a lot of those really fun correlations because people are just more, they're smarter, they're thinking things through, they're being more intentional. Like I'm saying, they're picking their, the right players at the right times. So you'll get some really fun combinations. It's not like you're drafting worse teams in any capacity by drafting on stream with us with sharper people, and you'll learn a lot. But I do think if you have it in you, if you have an hour break, if you have time, you jump in a lobby in the afternoon and see some of these people that just really don't know what they're doing. It's fun. So any last thoughts? Again, and I really can't recommend it enough. I was almost late getting here because I was reading the entire article that Matt put together. It's incredibly good. A couple takeaways that we've talked about a lot. And a couple of takeaways that I really hadn't mentioned before because I hadn't really had anything to come to that conclusion. And you've already mentioned one of them with, centers. Maybe there is a little bit more than we've been able to discuss, but yeah, definitely give that a read. I don't know. I mean, again, we do all this for fun, really. Like we're not, if you like the YouTube video or whatever, it's not going to make a difference. Honestly, like we're in a niche, but doing like everyone jumping in, everyone drafting, like the more tweets they're seeing, the more conversation that gets started, the more people that want to get involved. Like that's how things take off for the sport, which really is what matters. Like not anything else. And always, the last thing is like always just DM me or Matt. I mean, I know Matt's a little bit better maybe on Discord than I am, so you can go to him there too. But like, if you ever have questions or you're ever like wondering about something, like we talk about this for 2.5 hours on stream because we like talking about it. Like I'm never gonna like if I don't answer you, it's not because I'm ignoring you. Like I will get back to you or I didn't see it. Just maybe I'll say it for myself. Matt, you can you can join our
and
Discord
you
for
all
sure.
and you all thankfully don't see the hours a day where we talk to one another, not on camera or on stream or whatever. And it largely revolves around gambling on hockey because we're sick, broken individuals. But yeah, no, it's certainly never it's never a bad thing. I know the Morning Skate Pod Discord has, you do the tally, and it has probably a third to half of the entries in the Best Buck Classic just chilling in there. You add in the Posit Kingdom, the overlap between those two. I think that's where we hang out the most as far as discussing these contests.
Like, what percent of the last 2 years in both the Zamboni and the Best Buck Classic of like the top 10 teams were drafted from, I mean, I could look into it, right? Like, wouldn't be that hard to figure out. So no, it's like all of the smartest people. And, I do think more people are taking notice of hockey, and I know Underdog literally, like, they're going to release another contest. They basically told us that, and like all of that is a testament to the community that's being built. And when this dropped, every stream that went out, people were talking about hockey, like on Pete's streams, on the Badge Bros, and I'm not saying to bombard your favorite person that actually like has a following and stuff with hockey stuff, but like, I mean, if they post something like, just be like, when are you doing a hockey draft or something? You don't have to be in the stream in the comments too much, but I do think it's just hockey's always been there hasn't been the conversation, and like it's starting to, I think, become more of a conversation, and more sites are going to have to take notice, and it only happens because of people getting out there and doing it. And I guess the last thing I'll say is like, now that, and again, I don't follow this stuff, but like people were saying that Barstool Big Cat did a best ball draft on DraftKings that had like over 60,000 people viewing it. Like, best ball is going to take off. Like, and please, and I know you, and again, I just don't care. Like, Big Cat does what he does. Pray every day that is because of Barstool Sports. Every day when you go to bed at night, think, please, Spit and Chicklets, please get every one of those fans into these drafts, because I guarantee they will be taking Braden Point at 10, and you are just going to be having a ton of fun. So
Mitch Marner will literally go in the 10th round.
So I'm just saying, like while things might get sharper because of sharp people, it's going to become a much bigger benefit, I think, in hockey, where the people that will come in really, really won't know what they're doing, and it's not even that they're entirely wrong. Like, where would all of these players going if positions didn't matter? If like nothing mattered other than just, you know what I mean? Like, those kind of conversations, and like they're just not going to have any sort of like the stand down. So no, I don't know. I'm just really passionate about this exact, like, this is what I think the future of fantasy hockey is 100%. And it may never get there, even though it's by far the best product. Sometimes the best product doesn't win. Sometimes the best, brand doesn't win. And you end up getting a much worse product for whatever reason. But like, that is because of a lot of reasons that are not Underdog being a great site or anything of that nature. It's just, hockey is not a priority to anyone. For a lot of, how many Canadian streamers could talk about football? Like, all of them? Like, name one. I don't know. I'm rambling really long now. I wanted to shut this down, and I'm just rambling about nothing. So, Matt, anything else you want to say?
No, my body is going into full shutdown mode. It is like 7 a.m. or whatever, 6 a.m. in my body clock. So I think it's time to get out of here. Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Fake Moods. DJ's at DJ's94. This will be both on the audio and the video feeds. I'll cut that in. I'll cut that in before post.
Okay.
As like a pre-roll or whatever. And yeah, so if you're on the audio, check out the video feed. If you're on the video, make sure you're subscribed to the audio feed. And of course, my newsletter. If you've missed it somehow, just enjoy the rock you've been living under for the last 2.5 hours, and welcome back to reality from zoning out doing your work or something, because our sweet dulcet tones get you through your workday. Yeah, DJ, feel free to shut us down.
Yep. Thanks, Meatwad. From Meatwad.
Yeah. That's just the goat right there. So from Doug, from DJ, from myself, have a good best puck summer, everybody, and we will see you.